I thought that was mine. Yeah. It's actually better when I was after. I'm gonna keep this and leave it on my desk in case something does want to. Yeah.
Yikes. It's good for you. Just air pressure. There's some air pressure. Oh.
Ms. Harris, Mr. Davis ready?
We are, Your Honor.
All right, good morning, all. This is case B 21-00604, State of Ohio versus Brandon Davis. Representing Mr. Davis today
Rodney Harris on behalf of Brandon Davis.
and on behalf of the state.
Brian Goodyear, Judge, I apologize. I meant to be here at 9 o'clock. I got stuck in another courtroom. I was trying to get something moved. So I apologize for being a few minutes late.
All right, no problem. We're all ready now.
We are ready to proceed, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Davis pled guilty to 4 counts, is that correct?
That is correct. 3 F2 counts of aggravated vehicular homicide, F3 aggravated vehicular assault.
Before we go into mitigation and hearing from anyone who wants to say anything, I will hear from anyone and everyone if you want to say something today. I wanted to just give a overview of what's going to happen today. It's not every day that we have a case like this, and I wanted to give everyone a sense of what goes into a sentence. It's not just me sitting here coming up with a number. There are a lot of guidelines that we must go through in determining a sentence for an offender. There are certain factors that we must consider, and I want you all to consider that when you are speaking and relaying the information to me to come up with a sentence that you believe is fair. The overriding purpose of sentencing is to protect the public from future crime by the offender and others, to punish the offender, and to promote the effective rehabilitation of the offender while using the minimum sanctions that the court determines to accomplish those purposes, without imposing an unnecessary burden on the state or the local government. Now, I want to repeat that because that is the law. The law is that I must use the minimum sanctions to achieve that purpose. It's not the maximum, it is the minimum. Things that I must consider. I must consider the victims, the harm caused to the victims. I must consider the defendant's criminal history or lack thereof. And unfortunately, I must also consider the victim's involvement in the offense. So when you come up to the podium, I want you to tell me anything and everything that you believe will allow me to come up with a just and fair sentence. I'm going to allow the state to go first because there's going to be so many people speaking. And then I'll allow the defendant to have the last word.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Judge, before we begin, can we approach briefly?
Yes.
So-
I know this is going to be pretty lengthy. I didn't know if you want to stand the entire time or if you wanted to. It's up to you.
Yes. I mean, we can take a seat.
If you want to kind of position the table.
Thank you.
Your, I know there are quite a few people who would like to speak, also some people in the hallway. I would also, again, if I get approached, there's a letter, victim impact letter that Ms. Luck received from an individual who could not be here today. I want to make sure you get a chance to see that as well.
And I want to let everyone know that I did have an opportunity to read each and every letter that was sent in. I have an entire binder of everyone's letters, so I did read each and every one. I also watched the video from the surviving victim, and I will allow you to speak again today. So state, who wants to go first?
You want to just step up to the,
Podium right there.
and step up to this or here?
I would prefer they step up to this podium so that the court reporter can hear.
Am I stepping up? And just state your name and then you can tell us what you'd like to, okay?
My name is Marnita Ingram. I am, as you stated, the surviving victim from this incident. I will be honest, I was not necessarily prepared to speak first today, but nonetheless, I did want to speak. The reason I wanted to speak today was to ensure that we can receive some form of justice as a result of what transpired. I understand what you explained as far as even us, as in the ladies involved in this incident, being accountable for our portion of this. And so we have to be accountable for that, but everyone involved needs to be accountable. So with that being said, I know I was the last one with my ladies, my girls, as I call them. I know there's a lot that a lot of people don't know about that happened that night, and there's a lot that I still to this day remember and I will likely never forget because of the lasting effects. So I'd like to try to briefly go through this to the extent that I can.
Do you mind if I ask you questions?
Absolutely.
Because there are a lot of things that I don't know. I've been through the entire file several times, listened to your video, and there's still some things that are missing.
Absolutely.
Most importantly is how the four of you found yourself to be in that car that night.
Correct.
Okay.
So in essence, on the day of January 24th at about 2:45 p.m., my girls and I met at Roseland. The plan was to meet at a designated location where we could carpool, and one of us, myself specifically, drive us to the venue that we were planning to attend. My girls decided, and we always had a rule when we were together. There's four of us, sometimes it was just three of us, but whenever we were together, we always had a rule, majority rules. That's how decisions were made, meaning if we came together, we leave together. We all make the decisions to help save ourselves, all of us. On this day, we met. I was supposed to drive us to the venue. However, my girls, they trumped me. Majority rule. They said, no, you're not driving. We're taking you out for your birthday, and we don't want you driving. Fair enough. So we then called my sister, who lives not too far from our meeting location. She offered to chauffeur us to the location. We go.
Now, I'm going to stop you there.
Absolutely.
When you say your sister,
Mhm.
is this your biological
This is
sister?
my biological sister, Chanel Millie. I'm not sure if she's here today, but she may be.
She is.
There she is. She is here today. Same mother, same father. It's just the two of us as far as siblings. So I called her.
I'm gonna have to stop you.
Absolutely, go right ahead.
When I was reading through the letters, I came across the letter from Chanel Neely,
Okay,
and it caused me some concern.
okay,
And I have to let the defense know this, that my stepbrother, Trent Neely, that is his wife, did not know anything about this until I saw that letter in the binder yesterday. Mr. Harris, you want to address that?
Judge, we feel comfortable that the court will be fair, Your Honor. We're prepared to go forward.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
okay. So I called my sister. She was home. She was willing to drop us off. So I drove. We all got into my car, and I drove around the corner to my sister's house, which was maybe 2 blocks away. I parked my car there. We all got out the car. We got into her car, and she proceeded to take us down to the venue. Now, one of the things I like to point out, when we got in her vehicle, we sat in a select order, typically the same order that we would generally sit in when we're traveling. Alice was in the front seat, passenger seat. I was sitting directly behind Alice in the back passenger seat. Erica was sitting in the middle, and Natasha was sitting behind the driver, my sister. We rode down to the venue. We got out of the car. We entered the venue. We had fun at the venue for the time that we were there. How we encountered Brandon, I'll be honest with you, I had not seen him in all of 20 years. Yes, once upon a time, we were all childhood friends. We grew up in Roseland. I think Tasha and Alice went to school with him, but we, Erica and myself, met him maybe about, I don't know, maybe 12 or young teenage years, young adolescents. Nonetheless, we were all childhood friends. We did grow up. We had close rapport when we were younger. So Erica and myself were at a buffet at this event, and as we were walking from the buffet with our food, heading to our table to sit down to eat, is when we noticed Alice talking to Brandon, and she's like, oh, there they are right there. So as we're walking over with our food, it's like, oh, hey, how are you? And you see someone you haven't seen in a while. So we spoke very, very briefly. We sit down at the table. Alice and him continued their conversation for a little while. She eventually got his food, came down and sit. While we're all seated at the table, he's kind of, we're joking and laughing a little bit. He's kind of poking fun. And what are you guys drinking? Because they had like unlimited mimosas. And we just had mimosas there. And he's like, well, no, y'all need a drink. Let me get y'all a drink. So he buys us a round of shots. But he does not buy one for himself. He buys us a round of shots. We place the order with the waitress. We get the drinks delivered. He goes on his way, and me and my girls take shots together without him. We then continue to enjoy our brunch festivities around this table for, let's say, our appointment, our reservation was at 3:30, and this side of the brunch activities ended at 5 p.m. So it was nearing 5 p.m. around the time when we were about finished, but it was earlier stated that Brandon had told Alice that if we come to the other side, he had a section of where we could hang out if we needed a place to sit. And I apologize. Can I have some water? I'm getting really
Yes,
dry.
yes,
I have a bottle here if I can grab it.
that's fine.
Is that okay? Okay. I'm sorry. And so when we finish, I would say between 4:50 and 5 o'clock as far as with the brunch, the happy hour. That's what we came for, that festivity right there. We didn't know if we would have the option to go to the other side to do the partying, if you will, but our brunch activities were over. They're beginning to clean up, and then the question comes, well, do we want to at least see what the other side looks like? So it's decided, yes, let's go at least check it out. So we head to the other side, the four of us are walking through. We walk through, somebody's like, oh, that's the section where Brandon is. I can see the booth they saw. So, okay, we're heading in that direction. We go over into that area, and now we're hanging out in the general area where Brandon is. There's a little bit of conversation with him, then there's not. So me being the birthday girl, I'm kind of partying with a little bit of everybody. There were some young ladies in town from Columbus who I partied with, who were right there. So it's a lot happening. It's a club, it's parties. So anyway, my girls were more so sitting in the booth behind me while I'm standing out front doing more so dancing, mingling, and things of that nature. I do recall specifically while we were on that side, we did order a couple of rounds of drinks. I do specifically recall one of those rounds of drinks, which I don't know how, I don't know who ordered it, where we had a mixed up or a wrong ordering of drinks. Meaning, in total, I know exactly how many drinks we had. We took 5 shots, the exception being Tasha, because she decided she didn't want to take that shot. So we took 5 shots in total at this venue.
And you're
so,
also drinking mimosas?
I had a sip, yes, but I wasn't big on the mimosas. But yes, we had mimosas and then the shots.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so I do recall that the 4th order of shot drinks were mixed up. And I recall them being mixed up because what it came out as was 3 orders of Hennessy and then 1 Jose Cuervo, whereas it should have been 1 shot of Jose Cuervo, 1 shot of Hennessy, and 2 shots of Patron, which is the consistent that we had the entire day. But for whatever reason, and again, I wasn't doing the ordering because my friends were taking care of me this day. I did not get the opportunity to see or know what happened as to why the drinks were messed up. But I do recall Natasha and myself having a brief conversation of, are we going to take these drinks? Are we sending them back? Or what are we doing? Well, we opted because we were partying and celebrating, and plus we weren't driving. We're going to take the shots. We took the shots.
During this time,
Mm-hmm.
Did you see Mr. Davis drinking?
I did not. I did not see him drinking because we didn't sit down in an orderly fashion to drink and per se party together. The irony though, and I'm kind of jumping a little bit, the irony though is after the fact, I did end up getting a text message of a picture sent to me from Mr. Davis directly where it contains him and my 3 girls. And the irony that looks like he's sitting on Alice's lap and he's actually holding a drink. And I was kind of questioning, where did that picture happen? When did that happen? And why wasn't I in it? Well, there was only one time that I actually left my girls when we were at the club. And it was to go to the bathroom to readjust the sash and crown, the 40th birthday, sash and crown that I was wearing. And so I imagine that could have been when that picture happened, because otherwise I would have been in the picture alongside them. But again, I didn't see him drinking because it's not like we went cheers, toast, and drank directly together. So there comes a point where I remember a discussion was brought to me from Alice about what we were doing next after leaving here. And so I'm like, well, I don't know, let me ask, because we polled the group. So I asked Tasha, she's like, oh, I'm feeling good, I'm okay here. Erica's feeling the same, oh no, we're fine. So then it stated, oh no, we're staying here, then when we leave here, we're going home, moving back to Roseline.
And at what time did you eventually leave the club?
We left the club at 6:01 p.m.
And you were supposed to call your sister at that time?
So actually, back to that conversation where Alice just asked us what were we doing thereafter. So at this point in time is where we're making the decision. What are we doing? Are we calling what we called her was the Uber, Erica being silly, right? So with that, we're having this conversation and then this question, once it was clear that we're not going to another establishment, we're going home after this, we stated that we were going to Roseline. Alice then says something about, well, Brandon can give us a ride. And I'm like, well, is that okay? Because we're polling a group. And I'm the messenger. And I remember very vividly and very detailed saying, because there was a question as well, we don't want to go and do it. And I said, no, because they've already said they're okay and they want to leave from here. So I remember very vividly stating, when we leave here, we're going back to Roseline. And then that was that. A little fight broke out at the club, like a little, something happened. And then it was like, okay, let's call our ride. And then however it was decided, and again, because I wasn't the primary person having direct conversation with him, all of that night, I don't know how all the details came about, but I do know that it was one way or another decided that he was going to drive us. So at this point now, we're about to leave the club. We're heading out and Brandon leaves out first. Alice leaves out behind him. Erica's walking, then me, and then Tasha's coming behind me. And I'm kind of walking slowly with Tasha as we're heading towards his car.
So, don't mean to cut you
No,
off,
go for it.
but I want to cut you off at this point.
Mhm.
I want you to speak at the very end
Mhm.
regarding the details of the accident. Okay?
Okay.
So I want to hear from other individuals now, and I want you to come back and tell me the details, the final details of the accident and how it all ended.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yes.
So stop here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Just try to do this in orderly fashion. I'm just gonna kind of go by the order of the indictment. So is there anyone here from the friends and family of Ms. Richardson who would like to speak? Stephanie. And there's also, I'll go out in the hallway, there's also people in the hallway.
All right, open the door. Just a little bit of air flowing. Or I can open these behind me if you want. Tell me your name, ma'am.
Rhonda Scott.
Just for the record, we've all been vaccinated, so you can feel free to take out your mask if you want to.
I'm Alice Richardson. Oh, sister. I just want to know why. You took something from us. You got a question in my face. I'm empty. I don't know if you have a sister, but then my sister had a barn. That's my baby sister. I was with my mom, she was pregnant. You just don't know what you did to us. And you said that was your friend.
Ma'am, you can stay focused this way.
Yeah. Yeah, I just would wish that you give him the max.
Gentlemen, there are people on the hallway. Let me bring them. Just give me 1 second. Just stand right here. You're the one to stand.
That's fine. Tell me your names.
My name is Jeremiah Richardson.
Kanaya Davis.
We both Alice Richardson kids. I would just like to say I've lost a lot of my life, but the one person that made those losses easy to deal with is no longer here with me. Like, my two number one supporters left me at the same time. I have a brother and a sister, two cousins, and a lot of family members in pain because of this tragedy. I no longer have parents, and I have to wake up to that every day. I wake up to my mother and father's obituaries every single day. That's the closest I can get to my parents. My mom was my rock. I had her back and she had mine. I took care of her. I would never let this happen to her. I don't know what Brandon is. Are you Brandon? You said you was their friends, but you was not their protectors. I've been told that you feel bad, and I don't doubt that, but I've been a bigger person my whole life, and in this situation, I'll be the bigger person as well. I have to forgive you so I can move on. I'm not forgiving you so you can feel better. I'm forgiving you because my mom and my auntie didn't raise me to hold grudges. Grudges never got me nowhere. Excuse me, Judge, no disrespect to you, but I do not feel like justice is being served to my mom, my auntie, or Erica. Like,
Why would you say that?
I wasn't able to make many of the court dates because I worked for Cincinnati Fire Department. But my family been telling me what's been going on, and I feel like Brandon been getting slapped on the wrist the whole time. And killing 3 people, nobody should not be getting the time that they each face. But that's my opinion. I'm not a judge. You are. Back to what I was saying though, I will still forever be heartbroken, find this newly found depression and searching for peace in my life. I keep getting told that my mom and my auntie served their purpose and that their time was up. But in my opinion, all I feel like is that their time was snatched away. Even though they are gone, I'm gonna continue to do my best to be my best and to be the best version of myself.
I just want to say something. I feel like he here. He been out since February. My mom been gone since January. So he been out. He can do anything with his family. He took my best friend away. Like I just turned 20. My mom ain't here for nothing. Nothing I accomplished. Nothing. So I feel like he need to be in there. I don't know if he got kids or not. Half these people probably in here got their mom still. I'm a fresh 20, no kids. They ain't even become a grandma. Tasha kid, they ain't even graduate high school yet. So it's like, why is he still out? He violated stuff. It's the point that he should have been in jail since then. That little $5,000 bond, I could have gave him $5,000. That should have been higher than that. He took something away from me. I cannot do that. My mom ain't gonna be here when I had kids. My mom ain't gonna be here when I get my house. So it's like, I don't care about none of that. No, none of his family, I don't care. If they got something to say, they can say it. Don't say nothing outrageous, because he don't deserve no justice. He did what he did. And I'm upset because they could have called me. I can't pick him up. And they would have been here. Like, I don't. No, it's just crazy. Like, you really took 3 people. 3 people. Like, I'm here. Not cool. We the ones that go through this. He ain't sorry for what he did. He ain't nothing. I don't want to know how he get something.
So is there anyone else who would like to speak this morning regarding any of these cases? Just have you come up one at a time. You stand right here, please. And just for the court reporter, please tell us your name.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Take your time.
I don't speak a lot. I mean, you know, they say people get to drinking or whatever, get that liquid courage in them and get to talking. Man, what know that. But other than that, I normally don't talk. A lot of people in here are family members of Alice. That was my fiance. I don't know if she said nothing to him, but she created more happiness in my life than I've ever received in my. I'm 41 years old. And I ain't never been as happy as I was in that year and a half that we was together. I try not to talk about it. I know I probably should talk to somebody, but it's hard. So I talk to her every single Thursday. She the only one that I talk to that I feel like listen. I blame myself a lot for this incident because she did something she don't never do with me that morning. I had just left her. I go pick up my younger son every Sunday. And she asked me, should she go hang with them? We don't even talk like that. Every day we go and we hang. We got an open communication. But that day she asked, I feel so bad and hurt inside because I told her it was okay and it wasn't. I've been trying my hardest because I got people. I've been on both sides of this. I got a best friend that did 5 years vehicular homicide because he killed his girlfriend. We was all together that night, and I gotta live with that. So I try to understand, but I don't. I done had a DUI before, and from that day on, I don't take them chances no more. I don't do that no more. Because luckily I was pulled over for a light that was out. But I could have hurt somebody. I could have killed somebody. So I know. And we all know that you can make a decision whether or not you are well enough to get behind that wheel. I wasn't in my right mind, and I know you wasn't in yours. Nobody drives it. Everybody, nothing against the city. I love my city. But nobody wants to drive 75 right there. Nobody. I don't know nobody, when they sober, they want to drive from downtown right there through where they doing that construction or whatever it is, how they changed it up from 74 and 75. No, but I don't even drive. I can't drive now. It's been a whole year, and I don't even get on. I don't even drive past Hopper because I just break down. I might have a wreck. I try to have understanding and forgiveness because I feel like I said, I feel like I blame myself for a lot of it. But just like my daughter just said, I feel like he knew. And like she said, I feel like since you've been out, you have shown no remorse. I tried to come in here and and listening to what the judge telling us how the law works. It ain't about the law. It's about remorse. If that was your friend, that was my best friend. I had to put her ring on her finger and put her in the ground. You ain't called. You ain't sent no flowers. I know it's uncomfortable to come around us because we don't want to see you. But the stuff to do, the remorse stuff, I done been wrong before. I done, close, like my mama, I done messed up with my mama. But I make sure my mama know that I'm remorseful. I'm sorry. I've showed that I was sorry for what I did. And I feel like you have not done none of that since you've been out. The court gonna give you, the Lord gonna make sure that the court give him what he deserved. Like, I'm not trying to hold no grudge, and I ain't trying to tell you what to do. But I feel like if he was remorseful and he got just the deaths should have been enough lesson. I done did stuff wrong in my life, I know that the stuff that was given to me, I deserved it. I was remorseful for it. That's why the chances that I have later is because of the stuff that I did after I got in trouble. I would have started that from day one. My baby got took from me the 24th of January. I ain't never gonna forget that date, no matter what I do. I walk around with these on my neck every day to make sure that the girls that I love who love me back is always with me and always respected. I just feel like he don't show no respect. That's all I gotta say.
Good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
To the courts. My name is Dr. Grundy Allen. I am the mother of Natasha Nicole Moore, who was one of the victims in the accident. Not only that, am I also Alice's godmother, so to say. I've known these babies from a long time, since the second, third grade. My sweets was the joy of my life. She's a very important part of my life. I hate to say it in court, but my ride or die. Wherever I went, Natasha was there. She leaves us. She leaves her son, Nicholas, who is a proud graduate of Xavier High School. He graduated in May with a degree in engineering physics, and I commend him for being able to march on even after the passing of his mother. My granddaughter, Kennedy Renee, she is a proud Purcell Marion Cavalier. Her mother doesn't get to see her play basketball. This is her first year at Purcell. So she misses her 16th birthday, which was December the 5th. We just celebrate. My birthday was December the 1st. My son's was December the 3rd. We all are mourning the passing of Natasha, Alice, and Erica. My mother, who is here, we buried Natasha the day after my mother's 80th birthday, December the 8th. So this has been a very trying time for us. I have worked in the field of criminal justice. I have worked with substance use disorder. I have worked with victims of domestic violence. I have been an assistant, and I have been an advocate for many people. I have worked with police officers. I worked with the judges. This here is a hard one because I've been in the courtroom quite frequently. And they say Black Lives Matter. I say all lives matter. But what I saw in this courtroom, I was really kind of offended by the system itself. Three beautiful, smart, intelligent mothers. And we thank God that Nita survived, lost their lives. Each and every one of their children are my children, and I know that they have passed the torch on for me to carry on, because now I'm responsible. I went from going to Africa and all over the world to now I'm back into mama, grandma world. Transition, change. And first and foremost, I am a child of God. So I know that God, in this time of these past 11 months, it has been very difficult. And I had to ask God, help me to forgive. I knew Brandon. I was Roseline mother. So I know these kids. They know me. I was up at school. They know I was there for Bobby and Tasha. There go Bobby and Tasha mama. Because you know what? I was hard, but I was fair. I'm not here. The courts can't give me no justice because you can't bring my baby back. Okay? I was appalled with him being out on a $50,000 bond, 5%. Okay, this is not personal. This is the law in this business. $5,000 bond. I've seen a whole lot in my lifetime working in the system. All lives matter. My baby life mattered. But in this courtroom, I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that at all. And I don't mean no harm by anything that I say. But for the advocates who were supposed to be advocating for us, I didn't feel that. I didn't feel it at all. I didn't feel that the prosecutor really even cared about us. That's just my feelings, okay? In this process of forgiveness, I got a chance to see Brandon down the hallway. I forgive him because God forgave me, and I know I have to forgive so that I can help Nick and help Kenny and help Bob. Because you know what? If I fall, I take down my whole family because I am the head. I am the queen. I know who I am. Tasha was raised better. I told her, don't you ever get in nobody's car who's intoxicated. You can call me at any time. She knew her mama would come and get her. So there are consequences. Unfortunately, the consequences for the choices that they made, they're dead. Okay? They don't get to live their life again. It's over. There has to be a consequence. Accountability. Accountability is what I'm looking for here. Lives do matter. Where's the news camera? They're not here today. Because you know what? We don't matter. But you know what? May not matter to them, but they do matter to me. And so I stand here to represent the entire group. We will bond together. Weeping may endure for a night, but I know that joy is going to come. And I'm going to stand on that. I'm going to stand on the word and what God has done. But in order for us to all heal, we have to find forgiveness. Because when we look around, look who's in here. It's us. And we fight against us. We bicker against us. It hurts. Really, it hurts. I know you hurt. You may not know how to articulate, and I pray that you go get you some counseling. Because see, I've been in this field for a long time. And you know what? It eats me up because I only imagine what my baby was doing. You and me were there. I pray. I pray your strength. I pray that God has mercy on him just as he does on us. So I thank you. I thank the courts for allowing me. I sent you a whole lot of things of my baby. I just graduated with my doctoral degree. My baby was there hollering, there go my baby, there go my mama. Okay? COVID came, shut down. She didn't get to see her mama be Dr. A because she knew. But I'm coming back out because I know that this experience here, whatever don't kill you, makes you stronger. And so therefore, I will take and lead Nick and lead Kennedy, lead Bobby, lead my troop. We're going to go. with the help of my mother, because she raised me to be the woman that I am standing here today. So with that being said, I thank the courts. I thank you for taking time out to listen.
How you doing, Your Honor?
I'm great.
I'm Lionel. Yeah, I'm vaccinated and boosted and all that. Yeah,
Tell me your name again.
Lionel Almer. I'm Alice's oldest brother. You know, so since all this stuff has happened, every day I stare at my sister's picture and I asked her, how do I supposed to feel? And I just kept asking her. And this morning, she told me, she said, you know, about this gentleman, about the whole situation. She told me, she says, you know me, I'm Miss Love. Everybody loves me. Everybody. Even in some of the things that I heard that happened. It's horrible what happened, but it was a chivalrous nature coming because they went over there because his chivalry, because they love Tasha, anybody. If anybody know them three ladies, their magnetism, and in Cincinnati, you know, people 20 years, 30 years. You know, I did my investigation. This guy, I stayed in Roseline. I mean, his cousin, brother, a couple people I know. So it's not, you know, Cincinnati is not like that. They're not, I mean, you in whatever crowd you in, but we all love. That's just how Cincinnati is. So she wanted me, so she gave me my answer. She wanted me to just tell everybody, like, you know, that all three of them was love. So whoever it was, they was with them because they loved them. And it hurt, you know, it hurt me to my heart to accept that answer from my sister. Because I want to be mad, I want to hate, I want to turn around and look at people. But she said that's not her. If it was a problem in our family, if I had a problem with one of my cousins, somehow she's kicking them with them and bringing them with me. And I'm like, that's what we're doing. And she like, yeah, we're family. She grew, and then Tasha, same way. That's why she was my other sister from another mother. That's just how it is. So I don't have nothing else to say other than the only thing that bothered me the most, because I stay in Montford Heights, so I have to, when I'm coming back north, I have to go through that way. It's so jacked up because if you're not from a certain central area right there, when you get off that exit every single day, it'll jack up on you, and it hurt and it killed my sister. You know what I mean? The only thing that hurt me to my heart was that I know either he didn't know what that jam was right there, or he didn't take 10 minutes to just go ahead and you turn on around, because whatever time he get, it's gonna be longer than that U-turn, and we gonna suffer longer than that U-turn. But my sister told me to tell y'all know all three of them was love, magnetic, and you know what I'm saying? She wouldn't have no hate in her heart. She was standing here.
Morning, Your Honor. My name is Robert Allen. I'm Natasha, and I was big brother. I grew up with Brandon. It's hard to say. I grew up telling my sisters, Tasha and Alice, never to hang around him. I never knew why. I used to tell them that. Like, I grew up not liking him or his big brother. Just to know that you came to the club without no insurance, and you got drunk, and you offered to drive them, that eats me. Like, we as men, we were put on this earth to protect women. Right? And you took that responsibility of saying that you was gonna protect my sisters and make sure they got back home safely that night. As we see, you failed, man. I got so much anger in my heart. Like, I'm not in the process of forgiving right now. Just to know that he had a $50,000 bond, 10% 5,000. That don't make no sense. I know dope boys who got bagged with just a gram, and they bond 300,000.
Hello,
Good morning.
my name is Tina Easley, and I'm Erica's older cousin. And I'm also Marnita's older cousin. I'm one that don't normally speak a lot. But when you heard my cousins, I come out. I roll with everything that they do, no matter if it's right or wrong. And on that Sunday, January 24th, that was the worst day of my life. Because on January 22nd was my birthday, and January 21st was Nita's birthday. That was the last time I seen my cousin. That was the last time I was able to touch her. That was the last time I was able to feel her, smell her breath, everything. It was taken away because you made the choice to protect them ladies. You made that choice by telling them to come with you. I get y'all there, but if you'd have left them where they was to where they could get home safe, how they got there safe, we wouldn't be going through this. I never knew you. I only knew of you. That's all I knew. But at this point, I'm gonna tell you, I hate you. But you know what? My cousin, when I was saying I hate you, my cousin Erica told me, nah, my cousin, we don't do that. Grandma didn't raise us that way. So, I hope you know all our frustration, anger, resentment, everything towards you. Right about now, I wish you walk out that door and drop dead. And I will feel satisfied. But you know what? That ain't gonna bring none of them back. It ain't gonna bring none of them back. But then again, jail might be the safest place for you. Because on the street, it's a whole different problem. I ain't making no threats, but I'm just saying, what you took from everybody in here, I hope you never be able to live with yourself. Because just to let you know, this is the last picture I ever took with my cousin. The last. And it hurts. This is all I got. This is all I have. What you got? You still get to see your mama, your brothers, sisters, kids, whatever you got. You still get to see them. We don't. So at the end of the day, I hope they put your ass up under the jail cell and shit on you. We'll throw the dirt on. Because that's how I feel. Because at the end of the day, we'll never get them back. We'll just have these memories. And with that being said, you take that memory with you.
Wrap it up.
Yes.
Tell me your name.
I'm Stephanie Easley. I'm Erica Easley's little sister. So I wanted to share those pictures with you so you can see my sister's beautiful face. If you notice in those pictures, she is smiling. That same smile was on her face when I was able to finally see her after she had passed away. At the funeral home, when we viewed her, she had that same smile on her face. And because of that smile, I know my sister was at peace. And when she passed away, she didn't feel any pain. My sister was 39 years young when she passed away. She was so warm. She had just started to find happiness and joy again. She was perfection. Even in her flaws, she was perfection. She was always there. She was my protector. I just knew we was gonna grow old together. Now, growing old terrifies me because I would do that alone. She was all I had, my only sibling. She deserved better. Tasha deserves better. Alice deserves better. My cousin, Marnita, my blood cousin, they deserve better. When we talk about Erica and Nita's relationship, it cracks me up because if one was there, the other one was there. So if my grandma knew when they got tattoos, if one had it, the other one had it, so she knew to fuss at both of them. So this wasn't just no random, oh, they just happened to meet up and like she said, they were their girls, they hung. That's what they did, so. But just like Brian said, my sister complained about that $50 for brunch. She didn't want to go. She was complaining, but she already paid it. She said, I'm asked for a go, so she went. I seen my sister that morning. She did my daughter's hair. She wanted to make sure she was all ready and prepared before the school week. Little did I know, when I came back to pick up my daughter, and I yelled up the steps to her, have fun, I'll see you later. I wasn't going to see her later. When I say, I could sit here and speak a million words to you, and nothing will come close to the loss, to the pain. That night, January 24th, when my Aunt Beverly came to get me and my mother to take us and told us it was bad, I would never forget my mom's screams as we waited in University Hospital parking lot for my sister to come, and she never was coming. To hear my mom screaming, asking where Erica, and nobody would tell her. And when my Uncle Rodney finally was able to get information and say we had to leave because Erica wasn't coming, and when she mentioned Erica's name as one of the three, to watch my mom pass out in the middle of a parking lot because she knew her oldest daughter was never coming home. The pain. I carried my sister around my neck. I carry her every day. When I wake up in the morning and go downstairs, I see her on my mantle because that's where her final resting place is with me. I cherish her. I love her. And again, she deserves more. When you talk about justice, I have to be okay whatever you decide is fair. I just ask that it be individual justice for each victim as they were individuals, and each family deserves that. I want you to know, as I told Brandon, I can't hate him. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. Only they know. We would never know. So I just look to you in the court to render what is necessary. I just know that Erica was Karen and Ronnie's daughter. She was my big sister. She was Roman and Olivia's Tonsi. And most importantly, above all, she was Eden Watkins' mother, who was at the time 12 years old when her mother passed away. And her mother would miss so many firsts. Eden would have to live without her mother for all her milestones, just like some of these other children will as well. And I just ask that you remember that and take that into consideration when you render your sentencing. And I thank you for allowing me to speak this morning.
No, I'm sorry about this.
Good morning.
Good morning. Tell me your name.
I'm Candy Mays, cousin of Erica Easy and Anita Ingram. Erica, I call Erica my twin cousin. I was proud to do that for several different reasons. Erica was older than me by 5 years, so she set the example. She was the first to stay out later than the rest of us, go on trips with her friends, even get a summer job. Erica was a life of the party. She had a presence, a smile, a laugh, would light up the door room so bright. And it never had it again. Never had it again. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. The fact that she'll never be able to be with her daughter, be with her family, it places unexplainable pain in the core of my soul. Core of my soul. Erica led by example. As I started, she was older than us by 5 years, but she was always responsible. She did that. She led by example. She was somebody that you wanted to look up to, was proud to look up to, proud to claim as a family member to be around because it was nothing negative that followed her. If you mentioned her and somebody knew her, it was good energy. December 24th, January 24th, they decided to Uber. And just go back to everything that I say about my cousin. It was a responsible call that they all made. It's no earthly punishment. No earthly punishment that'll bring my cousin back to us now. Statement my letter. I'm not sure how. I heard you at the beginning. What stood out to me is that it'll be the minimum. You can't be outright and this, that, and the other. But my thing is, it was
I
three.
want to correct you on that. I didn't say it would be the minimum.
It wouldn't be the max.
I said that the law requires me to look to the minimum.
Yes, sir. I stand corrected.
The minimum to get to the goal of sentencing, not the minimum sentence, the minimum sanction
Okay.
to adequately punish the defendant. Okay, there's a difference.
So that still states that I'm not all the way sure how the law works, but it asks if I was in place to render the judgment, I would ask for 3 life sentences, ran separately, 1 count of attempted murder in the form of vehicular homicide. My cousins, they won't get their family back. We can't get our family back. We can't get our family back. And you know, now you probably don't want to go to jail, man. But you know, not going to jail, man, that ain't right. You know, 5 years not gonna do it, 10 years not gonna do it. You'll get out, go drink another thing, come on. I'm not even sure how old you are. 40 years, you gonna do 40 years, or do 40 years, you'll be 80, you'll still get out and drink because you done wasted your life away. So just sit in there. Sit in there, let them ride. You're 40 years old, you don't know how to make a better decision than to put 3-4 lives in your car and not protect them. At 40 years old, you can't make a better decision. I don't see you making one at 80. Thank you, Judge.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Beverly Ingram, Renita's mom, Chanel Neely's mom, Erica's cousin, Erica's aunt. Her mom's my younger sister. And I just want to share the amount of pain that it has been for me and my family. Because these girls, as you heard mentioned, they were loved. They loved everybody. They loved being together. Renita loved them. They loved her. And the fact that she survived, but she's not the same. She came home. Well, I picked her up from the hospital, and she stayed with me until she was able to find her own home. I could hear her in the wee hours of the morning having a difficult time, because we were all having a difficult time. We're a family of girls, so very emotional. Tina's my niece. She spoke earlier, very emotional. But I know they wouldn't want us to be angry, because that was not their temperament. That's not the people that they were. That's not the people they were raised to be. Like I said, they loved everybody. Dedicated. They worked hard. They raised their families. They loved hard. The difficult piece for me as well is I watch my sister in a lot of pain, heartbroken, and my heart aches for her. I watch my daughter put on a facade of strength and peace, but I know her heart, and I can see the emptiness in her eyes, that she would trade places with either one of them. And it's just as difficult for her to remain here without them. I pray she finds peace, continue to seek the help that is needed, because mental illness is real. I pray that my family can heal. I pray that all the families can heal. Heal our hearts, heal our minds. I was there when Erica was born. And I've always been there for my younger sister. She shared with me that Erica would talk with her, and when they would speak, if she had a concern, Erica would tell her, call your sister. I'm that sister that Erica was speaking of. But it pains me. I can't help in this one. I can't fix it, because my family knows I try to fix everything. I can't fix this. I pray our hearts heal. I pray our minds are strengthened. I know Brandon. I own the home in Roseline. My house was that house that they came to. So Brandon been to my house. I don't have any words for Brandon. But I just want the court to know the ladies love being together. They loved each other. I know Renita is torn apart. Chanel is torn apart. we all heard. And I just want you to be fair. Do what's right according to the law. Being responsible, accepting your responsibilities and our responsibilities is all we have to accept. And we have to do our best and continue to be strong people, prayerful, and know that none of the ladies would have wanted us to be angry. Actually, I don't think they would want us to be sad because they were tough. Strength. Before I start, I just want to say something about Marnita. She would do anything for them. Hard worker, dedicated, public servant, long-term public servant for the city of Cincinnati, adjunct professor, teaching adults, entrepreneur, and to see her struggle to carry on is very difficult for me. I'm saddened that we are here today. And I just want you to be fair and do what is right according to the law. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Chanel Neely. Marnita Ingram's sister, Erica Easter's cousin. This one hurt. I was their Uber driver. I had it already scheduled. When they first called me, I'm gonna be there when they need me. I drive that route every day because I work in City Hall. I knew that traffic pattern just changed that morning. Not to say my sister's birthday changed, my birthday changed. We always celebrated my birthday and Tasha's birthday together, along with another friend of ours. His the 11th of July, mine the 12th, and Tasha's the 13th. This year, I didn't want to celebrate my birthday. They weren't there. I'm the third oldest cousin, so I was closer to Nita and Erica than Tina and Bonita. Like the other said, I have to forgive you so I can continue on. Just as God forgive me for my sins. This one, I only ask. I already know there's no amount of time that's gonna bring them back. But their life stopped January 24th. And all I have is memories. And shoulda, woulda, coulda. Thank you.
Is there anyone
Ms.
else?
Ingram.
Is there anyone else like to speak before? If you'd like to. Just step on up, sir.
It was hard coming up here, to do this. My
Tell me your
name
name.
is Dana Watkins. And everybody was talking about, her daughter. That's my daughter. I was with Erica for 15 years, a long time. So, when they called me and told me that happened to me, kind of just, my whole world just crashed, going through this, for the last year. She was like my rock, little pieces in place, it's hard now going home to this big house that we got. It's just something else, man. Dealing with all of this stuff. Every day I cry every day. I can't believe that happened to her. And couldn't just wake up like, maybe this ain't real, Maybe it's just something, who knows, but, she was just so sweet to me. I've been with her so long, I don't even know what to do with myself at the time now, So, this is the first time I've seen him, but I can't lie, she talked about him a lot, that was her friend. I used to always ask her, I can't lie, why do you want to, deal with that, be around those types of people, I guess. Because I'm like the type I just sit in the house, I work every day, I do those things, but you can't stop her. That's what she want to do, She gonna do what she want to do. I can't stop her from doing that stuff, so, It's just crazy that day that happened, I never said nothing to her. But for some reason, that day that happened, before she left the house, I told her to just, be careful when you go down there. Because the week before they showing pictures of people passed out on the table for drinking all the mimosas and all that stuff. So, it's crazy, And then that happened. He called me and told me that happened. I just like, dang, I just kept trying to get you to, not doing things. But she gonna do what she wanted to do. That's what made her happy. So I was happy, with that. So, I just say, whatever you guys are gonna do, it's gonna be what you want to do, And I just pray to God, that you made the right decision. And as far as him too, he's still alive. He got a lot to live, I guess, to a certain extent. But like they say, you gotta be punished, for things you do wrong. We all do. So that's all I have to say is just make the right decision because she's not coming back. I gotta raise this little black girl by myself in the world that we living in. Oh man, I'm glad this family have a lot of ladies to help me get through this because it's tough, without her being here. So, I couldn't just leave without saying something about her because she was so sweet to me for all these years. That's why I stayed with her. So, what makes it somebody I love these days? So, and I'm only 44. So, just imagine what we would have been if she was still probably 80 years old, still laughing together. So, you guys got to do what you got to do. I just wanted to say that. So, thank you.
Ms. Ingram, you ready?
I'm sorry, thanks.
Okay.
My name is Ellery. My name is Ebony Ellery, and I'm the cousin of Alice Richardson. I just want to say, Alice and Natasha and Erica, they supported you. Everything you did, they supported you. And as a man, we got choices. They made the choice to get in your car. And you made the choice to drive them knowing you had no insurance. They couldn't bank on them, but they banked on you. And you knew you was drinking. They didn't know how many you had. But you knew how many you had. And as a friend, it's okay to say no. And that's what you should have said as a 40-year-old man. Those are the decisions. So as they make the decision to get in your car and they're gone, you gotta stand on that. Eat that. Because if her son would have been out, that's who would have been seeing her body. That's who would have been there. You gotta stand on that and eat that. You ain't had no insurance, you ain't no tuition, no college tuition, no nothing. You can't give them nothing. And they supported the heck out of you. Brandon headline, they had it. We had a family function, it was there. Stand on it. Eat that. Because you did that.
Tell me your name.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Paul Ellery. Alice, as you would say, she got me a government twin. We came in the world as brothers and sisters and cousins as one. We've been on the hip since birth. She was born in March. I was born in July. She was my sister.
I'm not going to my sister. And it's just so much about this situation that I don't understand. Like, as my wife said, I grew up with Brandon. I know Brandon, a classmate. You know, I considered him a friend / associate. And when I got the news on the 24th, and they said that Tasha didn't make it, Alice didn't make it, Eric didn't make it. And I never understood because Alice would always get home. They would always get home. And they said he had a different driver. And he told me the name, and I said, please don't let it be him. And when I found out that it was Brandon, it just hurt me to my heart, to be honest. Because I know like a lot of people, everybody frustrated. I'm beyond pissed, I'm livid, I don't understand, forgiven. Like my head is in the matrix right now. But I know the time, whatever you give me, it's gonna hurt more of him mentally because those was friends. They were his friends, and I try to wrap my head around it to where he was trying to be a friend to get him home, but
Can I be honest with you? I've heard 3 people say, please don't let it be him, but no one has told me why. And that's why we're here today. I mean, I need to get a glimpse of what you guys are thinking. So you can't, no, hold on, let me finish. You know, being vague does not give me what I need. I need to know. I mean, and don't feel like you have to hold back, okay? You just told me and it's the 3rd time that I've heard that please don't let it be him. But I don't know why. Tell me why.
I have a cousin, her name is Marnita Colvin. Like in 2019, she told me that her friend, we all went to school with Brandon, Hughes Center. And he asked to drive them around, and he was driving crazy. And they decided to get out the car because he was showboating. He's a showboater. And at that night, I could see Alice getting in the car to get a ride, but I could also see him driving crazy as well too.
Have you ever seen him drive crazy?
Like I said, I have a cousin, blood cousin, mama's sisters, and she told me that he asked to ride her and her friend around, and he was driving crazy, and they asked to get out the car. I don't know how true it is. I just heard it, but I can see it. But like I said, Alice, Tasha, they supported him no matter what he had going on. They were friends, and that's why they got in the car. But like I said, as a 40-year-old man, we got chances and choices. Those are the choices that you made, and you have to stand on that. Just like they have to stand that they left, they're gone. So everybody has to take accountability somewhere. No matter if it's gonna be you got to take that. Don't fight that. These kids, I lost my mother at 19, so I can imagine what they're gonna go through life. Like I said, you ain't have no insurance, you can't pay for no tuition, you can't pay for no first semester, you can't give them babies nothing.
Okay, but
As far as me saying that I hope it wasn't him, is in the sense that he grew up with him. So that's just like you going with somebody and being in a stupid situation and you killed him. You know, like, you know, I ain't got babies, like you said. Like I got a nephew back there. He a firefighter. He's sharp. He's sharp as a tack. I can't call Alice and say, girl, you did a damn good job as a teenage mom with him. Her daughter, she ready to buy a house at 20. You don't hear girls talk about that. He took care of his mama, and she has another son that's in college. You know, like as a teenage mama, she did this. She ain't gotta be the world's rock star. She was mine. She did a good job. Tasha too. She got a son that's an engineer. We ain't from the burbs. It's just like they beat the odds, but just one excuse my language, fucked up night. She ruined everything. I never had my sister back. I can't grow old with her. I imagine that. Us being old at the table, Thanksgiving. I don't want to celebrate nothing. I can't get her back. Tasha was like a sister too. We came up from the sandbox.
Like even if you was just to get Brandon a day, like I'm not worried about the law. It's just more a man and moral and principle thing. Like I will never get my sister back. I know it's hard for you, Brandon. You know what I'm saying? I don't hold no hate in my heart because she won't want me to do that. We weren't raised like that, but I'm just confused, man. I'm just confused, man. And it don't matter the time. I don't even care about that, man. It's just the babies and what we lost as humans, man. You know what I'm saying? And it's just an accountability thing for me.
Judge, if I may.
You may.
I wanted to.
Tell me your name again.
Stephanie Easley, Erica Easley, little sister. I want to answer your question about the why, Brandon, from my perspective.
Okay.
That, as he said, Brandon's reputation does precede him. Brandon was always Brandon Arrogant Davis. And I've even told Brandon that when I first heard who was driving, that's where my heads went because I know Brandon. And like my aunt said, the house in Rosemount, we knew him before he even had license. His bike was parked, outside of her drive. And then when he started to drive, that's him. He's out there, he's loud, he wants to be seen. He prided himself being the arrogantest person in Cincinnati. So when I heard who was the driver, that's where my head went. So when we say Brandon, that's why. So my first thought was he was irresponsible. He was showing out. He had 4 beautiful ladies in the car. He wanted to show out for them. And that's why I say we deserved more and why I feel like he didn't give us that because of his reputation. And I understand what can you say to a family, in this situation, but at least try, send a car, send flowers, give us something. But when we got nothing, his reputation, Brandon Arrogant Davis, preceded him. So that's my answer to your why.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Anything from the officers before I go back to Ms. Ingram?
I'm Officer Anthony Halusik. I was recalled that night for this crash. And when we get recalled, we don't necessarily know the nature of the crashes when they happen. I was sent to the hospital first, and I only knew that there was 2 people at the hospital. I didn't even know that this was a fatal crash. When I get there, and I spoke with Miss Ingram, that's when I kind of started to realize how serious this crash was. As I responded to the scene, we all have those cases or instances that kind of stick with you. And I've seen a lot in the past 4 years. This is probably going to be the one that sticks with me just because of how the scene was laid out, the loss of life involved. I can't say anything to bring anybody back. I do just want everybody to know we put so much time and effort into this just to try to get what you all want out of this. If you have any questions about the scene, I'll be glad to answer. Other than that, I don't have much more to say.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess we're at the point where we're resuming when we're leaving the club. It's 6:01 p.m. As I stated, Brandon had walked out ahead, Alice walked out behind him, Erica, myself, and then Natasha. Natasha and I were towards the back. At the time of the incident, there were some things that occurred that I captured on video that I wasn't privy to in the moment, just through living in the moment, present.
Did you provide those videos to pretrial services?
I provided them to the detectives.
Okay.
I didn't know if they would get to you, so
They
I
did
didn't.
not.
Okay, so I apologize. I do have them if I
I
can
would
just-
like to see it.
we can arrange that, absolutely. And so one of the first things that Natasha says as we're coming out of the club is, he's gonna tell me I can't ask if he roofied my sister's drink. He roofied my sister's drink, and I have no idea what she's talking about. But as I stated earlier, I do recall there was a moment where there was a mix-up with drinks, and Tasha and I took a drink that was not initially intended for us, if you will, meaning it wasn't what we would have ordered. As we're walking to the car, and again, I'm videoing being silly with my girls while we're getting to the car, there's a moment where Erica says something about him popping the trunk. He's popping a trunk. Once we get in the car, and let me say this very specifically, I put Natasha in the car because I'm like, come on, you've been too silly, let's go, let's go. So it was time to go. Erica got in the car herself, Alice got in the car herself, and I went to put Tasha in the car in the back seat, specifically in the middle, because I wanted to put her in on the back passenger side, scoot her over, and then sit in my seat that I sat in on the ride down. However, Natasha very sternly, on multiple occasions, 3 to be exact, because I'm like, scoot over, scoot over. She was like, no. And of course, we've been drinking, so we're being silly, we're slightly intoxicated. And I told her to move over again, and she told me no. And the third time, I'm like, Tasha! And she looked at me very sternly and said no, to the point where I kind of got a little attitude, and I was like, okay, fine. And I walked around to the other side of the car. But again, I say that to say because we always sat in those same seats. I put Natasha in her car. I put her seatbelt on her. I went around and I got on the other side. I got in the car. I put my seatbelt on myself. When I'm getting into the car, and this is going back to one of these videos, now as I'm coming into the car, I'm video filming and I'm capturing audio of whatever was transpiring in the car before I got in it.
Would you happen to have any video footage of Mr. Davis? Well, tell me about his demeanor at that point.
He was being silly, just like us. Like, so when we literally crossed the street, like, so where Copa is, and I'm not truly familiar with the location. That was my first and only time being there. But where it is, wherever he was parked was like right across the street from it. So we just had to cross the street, and we're kind of being silly. We're laughing, saying whatever obscenities that we're saying, just being silly while talking. We get into the car.
At any time, did he give you the feeling that he should not be driving?
No, he didn't give me the impression that he was impaired or anything like that. He was walking straight. When we laughed and giggled, he laughed and giggled too. He participated in the conversations. And there was one point where Erica, being silly, had dropped down squatting as if she was using the bathroom, just being silly. And then Tasha did the same thing she did because, again, we were being together being silly. So Brandon, and you'll see this in the video, he's running, but it was almost like she had used the restroom, but she was acting as if she was. And he's like, hold it, don't use it, hold it. And so he's like running under her being silly. Then he runs down to Tasha, a little silliness in a parking lot before we get in the car. And so then, like I said, we get in the car. Once we are in the car, I'm about to record a video basically stating like, oh my goodness, this is what happens when you go out and you get your girls, drunk and having a good time. But when I listen to the playback of the video, I'm walking into a conversation where Erica is saying, Brandon got Tito's and Red Bull. Now, in the present, I didn't hear that conversation. In the video replay, I hear the conversation. Natasha is then saying, no, and she's saying something about, I'm putting it on Facebook. Basically, I tapped out. I'm not drinking anymore. I'm done. So I don't know if there was an offer of a drink inside that car made. I don't know what the reference was to Brandon got Tito's and Red Bull, but it is said in the video.
Did you see anyone drinking in the car?
I did not see not one person drink in the car, and I know for certain that the 3 ladies in the back seat did not have drinks or anything in their hands.
So who's in the front seat again?
Alice is in the front passenger seat.
Okay.
And so no, none of them had drinks in their possession because we're talking, we're laughing, we're taking pictures in our phone videos. So we're in our phones more so. So we leave the Copa establishment and we should be heading to Roselawn. However, and this is where we have to start talking about accountability and neglect again.
Is that where you found yourself?
That is not where we found ourselves. We found ourselves in Newport.
Right.
And it wasn't until a couple of things that were, again, shout out that kind of jogged my memory. One, there was a point where Brandon read a red light that Alice told him to quit playing. Quit playing, Brandon, quit playing. I'm saying I believe because I know we came to a stop first and I remember being involved with Erica. I believe he may have checked for clearance and it was just a red light, no traffic was coming. So then he opted to just run the light instead of waiting. This would have been getting off the exit of 471, approaching, I guess, that exit there by a stoplight in Newport. Moments
What
later.
was in Newport? Just a parking lot?
That part I can't answer because we never had an intent to go to Newport.
I mean, where did you eventually wind up at this?
So we ended up in a parking lot, and I can show you the picture of the parking lot as well as how we're parked. And even you can see from his parking, he's just barely kissing the line, but he backed in parallel parked pretty nicely for an intoxicated, if that be the case, person. Nonetheless, we're in a parking lot and now Tasha is sick and she's vomiting. So she's vomiting out the back seat of the car. Erica is consoling her, rubbing her back. I get out the car and come around to kind of check on her this way. I do remember at some point, because I remember seeing it in a picture, that Brandon must have gotten out through the front and went around to check on her. Alice stayed seated in the front of the car. Nonetheless, at this point in time, and this is around 6:14 p.m., somewhere the realization sets into where we are and where we're not. Roseline. Erica says, "This ain't Roseline, let Nita drive." So I remember when she said, "Let Nita drive," Nita being the quote unquote more responsible one who should have driven us, in my opinion, to begin with. I realized I am slightly impaired. I'm not in a position to drive, let alone someone else's vehicle that I'm unfamiliar with. So what did I do? I attempted to call a Lyft. So at 6:18 p.m., I go on my phone, I pull out the Lyft app, I attempt to call for a Lyft, but not using the app too frequently. It requires some sort of a verification code. It sent me that code at 6:18 p.m. I logged into the app and I remember looking around like, where am I? And I don't know. I have no idea where I am. Tasha is vomiting. She's now done vomiting. She's kind of like, oh, goggy. So at one point, it's like, okay, just get back in the car. Because someone says, well, come on, let's just get her home. And so we get back in the car. At this time, though, I go directly to get in the car. I didn't check anybody's seatbelt. I didn't check anything but get in the car and let's get home. So now we're driving, and I don't know exactly what route we took because, again, I don't have the best sense of direction. But we're driving. We're on the expressway. Erica and myself are in the back seat next to Tasha, who is now passed out asleep. And when I say passed out, I mean I've never seen her passed out like this before. We have all been. Did you? Oh, no. Sorry, I should we have all been together. We have all gone out together. We have been intoxicated together. I have never seen Natasha intoxicated in the way that she was on this day.
Is this the one that you thought ingested some type of drug?
Possible.
Okay.
Myself and or her. I don't know for sure. I'm just going off of what she stated in the video.
Okay.
So we're driving. Erica and I are in the back seat. We're kind of laughing and joking at Tasha because.
What is Alice doing in the front seat?
I'm really not sure. She could have been, her and Brandon could have been having a conversation. It wasn't a lot happening in the car. There was music playing, but we could still talk. It wasn't so loud to where we couldn't even hear each other talking because what was happening in the back seat, I'm sitting here, Erica's next to me. We're laughing, joking, and poking fun at Tasha. So we're kind of in the back seat shenanigans, if you will. Not too much happening in the front seat that really alerted us to pay attention to front seat per se.
What was the weather like?
The weather was, I remember it was a little misty out. Like it wasn't cold per se, but a light jacket would have been, needed. It was a little foggy. I'm sorry.
Was the ground wet?
The ground was slightly wet, like it was starting to get just a little misty. It had not rained per se, but I think because of the fog and a little bit of mist and so forth, it was kind of like those type conditions.
Okay. Did you notice if Alice was on the phone or Mr. Davis?
I did not. I did not. I will say something a little later to the whole phone and or I can say it now. There were alleged mentions of a Facebook Live that came my way twice. The first one was a call from a coworker of mine who happened to have heard from a family member of Tasha's that they allegedly saw Brandon go on Facebook Live. That was the first notification that I heard about Facebook
During that
Live.
drive?
While driving. That was a call that I received, was that it was mentioned that he was seen going on Facebook Live while driving. Again, how true it is, I don't know, but but that was something that was brought to my attention. Now, a direct conversation that I had with one of Brandon's friends named Dante, I'm not sure if he's here today or not, but again, another childhood friend who probably in a few months prior to this accident, he and I had recently connected via Facebook and were speaking like through messenger apps and so forth. I recall having a conversation with him after the accident, asking like, hey, has he said anything? Does he remember anything? What is he saying happened? And Dante said to me, Brandon said all he remembers is he looked over, Alice was on Facebook Live, and he looked over at you guys in the backseat, and boom. And I was like, why in the world would he look over? Why would he look in the backseat? So those were the two mentions of a Facebook Live that I ever heard.
Okay.
Besides that, that's it. So we're in the car. Like I said, Erica and I are in the backseat. We're taking pictures. And I don't mean like flash taking pictures, no. Not like that to distract the driver. These are all selfies and self-lighting and things of that nature from the back seat and the traffic lights passing by. It's about 6:26, 6:27. Erica and I are texting people on our phones individually. We are texting people individually in our phones at the time of the actual impact. So at that time, literally, face down in my phone, all I did was blink instantly. It was no swerving. It wasn't like there was an attempt to dodge something, like if you saw something in the road. It felt like we drove straight into this barrier. I remember my body banging forward, banging backwards, forward and backwards. The moment it happened, I unfortunately instantly knew what it was. I don't know how I knew, but I instantly knew what it was. And I was like, no. Everything instantly went quiet. It went dark. And I mean darker than you can ever imagine. Like closing your eyes and seeing the dark does not do it justice as dark as it was. And in a blink, in an instant, Erica's gone. Alice and Tasha and Brandon are all unresponsive. My phone is in my hand. I'll call 911. And I'm rocking and shaking bodies and I'm calling names because he's laid out over the dash, over the hood of the car as well. And I go for Tasha first because she was the closest to me at this point. Of course, her body had been shifted, so she's no longer sitting directly next to me. But the positioning that she was thrown into, when I rocked her, like, Tasha, get up. I thought she was responding because her head and her arm turned my way and swung like this. So then I lunged forward to Alice, to her body, to get to her body because she's in the front. I can't see her face. Her body is forward, but I can feel her. So I'm just doing anything, Alice, anything, nothing. So then I'm like, I gotta get us out this car. So I am fighting, like I am lunging at bodies, trying to get anybody to move. And Brandon does respond. His head was laid to the left. His hands and everything was thrown over like the front hood of the car. He began to move around. And when he began to move, I just instantly stopped with him and I had to fight my way out the car because the doors were jammed shut. I start by trying to elbow the door open, but it didn't work. So I had to turn and kick the door open. So I kicked that door open. I got out of the car and then I come around to the other side and I instantly start yanking doors open to get my girls out of here. Now, mind you, during the course of this, because I did not physically pull him out of the car, I just got him to move. Once he got back to moving, you're on your own because you are not important right now, no offense. And so I'm yanking doors open or trying to yank doors open. I do eventually get them open. I'm trying to get Tasha out from the back and I can't. I go to the front and try to get her and I can't get her out. I remember getting so ridiculously frustrated there because I'm looking around and I'm like, nobody is helping me. Not one person. And I'm just one person trying to yank all these car doors open and get these people out this car to try to save a life. Nobody is helping me. Now, let me go back for 1 second because when Brandon was laid across the hood of the car, he had on a t-shirt. I remember seeing his sleeves. Now that I'm frustrated, can't get these car doors open, I'm looking around and I see him standing over there in this freaking mink coat. He had time to go to the trunk of his car to get his mink coat, to put it on in the midst of this. So I am fighting, trying to save lives. And I remember looking at him like, you know what? You are so lucky. I got to take care of my girls right now, because I was so furious. I was so furious. And so then I'm like, where is Erica? There's another girl. And I'm yelling out, and I start running down 75 backwards because I'm going the wrong direction, thinking maybe she went this way. And I'm like, there's another girl, and I'm calling out to anybody. There's another girl. Where is she? There's another girl. And then a trucker is like, she's up here. And I take off running to go get my cousin, and she's down on the ground. And I lay on the ground with her, and she is, for the sake of the courtroom, I will save the images because I don't think anybody else should have to see what I saw on that day. And hear me when I say, it is through the help of medication that I am even able to stand here today to even say this. Because I am not okay. I am not at all okay. The images that I saw, and I'm not talking about, anyway. So I ran to my cousin to be by her side. And mind you, all the while that I'm doing this, I called 911. I had 911 on the phone. I told 911 our location. I gave 911 everybody's name. I gave 911 as much information as I possibly could to get them there as quickly as possible. I'm on the phone. I got 911, and I'm down there with my cousin on the ground. And I'm just rubbing her, protecting her, talking to her, consoling her, doing what I can to try to help her feel better in this situation. I don't think I realized the shock of what was really happening in this instance, because I didn't really see death. I saw my loved ones. So I'm trying to help my loved ones. I did what I could to fight for my loved ones. And so I'm on the ground with my cousin, and the firefighter comes, and he tells me, ma'am, we got to get you in the ambulance, and we got to check you out and all of that. And I'm like, no, my cousin, check her pulse, check her pulse, check her pulse. He checks her pulse, and he's like, ma'am, there's no pulse. I'm like, check it again, check it again. I asked him to check it like 2 or 3 times. He entertained me, and he did. And he kept trying to get me away from the body. The 911 operator tried to get me away from the body. The truck driver tried to get me away from the body. But I made it very clear, I am not leaving this scene. I am not leaving my girls. So I asked the firefighter if he could just give me something to cover her up with. Just give me something to cover her up. Just, it's cold. She's laying on the ground. Just help me cover her. He went and got a white sheet. I didn't realize what that white sheet meant. But he went and got the white sheet. And I covered up my cousin's deceased body on the ground right there on 75, 74, that split. And I laid there with her for as long as he would let me lay there. And then finally he says, ma'am, we have to get you up. And I still tried to resist. And he's like, no. And he spoke very stern with me, and he told me, this is officially a crime scene and we can no longer disturb the body. And so I'm like, what? Like, it doesn't make sense. What do you mean? Just get her up. Just get her in the ambulance. Let's just take her to the hospital and just fix her. But he told me that was impossible. So we began to walk to the ambulance. And at this time, of course, everyone is on the scene. They're working on extracting Tasha out of the vehicle. Brandon's no longer on the scene. I guess he was taken away in the ambulance by this time. So I'm sitting in the back of the ambulance. And I'm watching them kind of park the car. They bring Tasha out. They lay her down on the ground. And they cover her up with a white sheet. Just like I just covered up Erica. And I'm like, no, she was just unconscious. No, because I really thought she was just unconscious. And then, mind you, I had to make phone calls too. So the first thing I did call my mom, and I said, you gotta call your sister, it's bad. And I told her. I then called our best guy friend, Tally, who has always gotten us to and from everywhere safely, and it's never been an issue. And I told him, you gotta get Alice's mom. I don't have a number for Alice's mom. You gotta call Alice's mom. Then I go to call Miss Grundy. I didn't have a working number for her. So then I called Nicholas. He didn't answer. So I had to call my goddaughter, Kennedy. She answered, and she instantly knew something was wrong. She was already previously talking to her mom via text, and her mom stopped texting, and she's like, "Where's my mom?" I said, "Kennedy," as calmly as I could possibly sound in the midst of this, "I need you to call Grundy and tell her to call me right now. What's wrong? What's going on?" And I'm like, "Kennedy, I need you to listen. I need you to." And she's yelling back at me, "Why won't my mom answer her phone? Where's my mom?" And I'm like, "Kennedy, just have your grandma call me." And she does. Miss Grundy calls me. I'm still sitting in the ambulance at the scene. And when she calls me, I'm telling her we've been in a bad accident. It's really, really bad. I told her where we were, and I told her, I said, they're saying there may be 3 fatalities. And the firefighter next to me said, "Ma'am, there is not the possibility. There are 3 confirmed fatalities." And I just handed him the phone, because what do I say to this woman now? So I handed him the phone. He spoke to Miss Grundy and told her, I don't know what, because he stepped out the ambulance. They're checking me over. I'm in disbelief, like, what is happening right now? And then I guess the decision was made that they were going to try to clear traffic so that they could finish with the extractions. So now it becomes a matter of, let's clear the scene, let's clear the scene. And so they cleared as much traffic as they needed to, cleared the ambulance out, and I was taken to the hospital from the scene. And I just watched as those bodies laid on the ground under those sheets. So then I'm at the hospital. And while I'm at the hospital, I've been through testing, labs, x-ray, you name it, all the full. In the midst of all of this, because we were childhood friends, because we did once have a rapport and so forth, I'm still fighting for everybody's lives. So I reach out to that individual who I mentioned before, Dante, and I say, "Hey, do you have a number for Brandon? I need a number for Brandon." He gives me a number. I attempt to call it. It's a doo-doo-doo. So I call Dante back, and I'm like, "It's not working." I said, "You got to tell somebody he's been in an accident." So even in the midst of all of this, I'm still fighting to still protect him. I made sure his family was notified via Dante, a friend of his, like I said, who I knew was a friend of his. I then have other appointments, all the stuff of coming and going and all these labs, x-rays, etc. At some point, the detectives come in, they talk to me. I give them whatever statement I give them at that time. And then I want to say, I don't know, maybe a day later or so, I was released from the hospital. We went straight to family's house to begin planning 3 funerals. When we talk about,
question.
yes.
What do you think a fair punishment should be?
I'm going to be honest with you. I am still working on forgiving myself for ever allowing my girls to be in this situation, because they wholeheartedly trusted me. Anytime we were together, they felt that their lives were as safe as they could possibly be, because they were trusted, responsible, accountable people. A part of that forgiveness, I know I will have to forgive him in time. I'm not there just yet. Just being honest, I'm human. I hurt so bad. Like, this is my everything. When I say I did everything with these ladies, we did everything together. You've heard about Natasha's son being an engineer. We raised engineers together. I too have an engineer. I have a mechanical engineer. She is a physics engineer. Both graduated technically on the same day this year. However, through the grace of God, in this unfortunate situation, they moved my daughter's graduation a day after his. And it's in North Carolina, so I was fortunate to be able to be around for both. We're raising children. Between the 4 of us, we have a consecutive work history of 69 years, present time. Meaning, Tasha was at her career for 13 years. I've been at mine for 18. Both Alice and Erica have been with their employers for 19 years. We're accountable individuals. responsible individuals, public servants even. And it's so unfortunate. Between the four of us, we have 7 children. Between the four of us, we also have 7 college degrees, ranging from associates to masters. And as you heard, one of us is the daughter of a doctor. This is such an unfortunate situation because I knew Nicholas before the accident, and I know him now. Much like you heard my mother say, she knew me before the accident, and she knows me now. A lot of me is numb. A lot of me is lost. A lot of me is gone. I don't know. Well, I guess one day maybe I will get it back. But I don't know. I fight every day to mentally go on. I say that to say the impact has been beyond measurable. And I agree with others who have said today that there's no amount of time that will make this fair, right, or bring these ladies back. However, in my opinion, the maximum would be the minimum to start. And I say that wholeheartedly because accountability has to be a factor. Again, as we've stated, we grew up with Brandon. Yes, we've had rapport with him. Yes, we know some of his, but not all of his dealings. And like I said, me personally, I have not seen him since I want to say 2003, if I'm not mistaken. One of the things he said to me that night was, yo, where you been? I haven't seen you in like 20 years. And I was like, I know, I've been in the house raising my daughter. Like we hadn't seen each other. Now, I can't speak for Alice's rapport with him recently. I can't speak for Tasha's rapport with him recently. I had heard that he did sell some wine. He even told me about it that night as well. Yeah, so-and-so bought some wine for me. You should check it out. I was like, oh, okay. I've never purchased anything from him. I don't know his business ventures and so forth. But I do remember, much like what you heard before from Stephanie, I do remember him having an arrogant nature. I do remember disassociating with Brandon in the early 2000s as a result of his nature. It was a nature that I no longer wanted to be affiliated with. When we were younger, okay, all right, okay, now we're growing up. I'm raising a child here. This isn't going to. So there was a point where we had a rapport, a very brief rapport. But because of the lack of accountability in individual, because of some specific characteristics of personal characteristics of his that I didn't necessarily agree with, decided this doesn't need to go any further. So you can go your way, I will go my way. And what I recall on this day is that 1, he never had to be a part of it. He never had to be. 2, at whatever point when it was decided we were going to Roseline, it would be nice to know what made him decide to take us to Newport because we never had to get on the expressway to go back to our destination where we came from. We never had to get on the expressway. Nobody asked to go to Newport. So how do we end up in Newport? And now we're even further away from our home destination where we need to get back to. And yes, alcohol, unfortunately, has been a factor. But again, back to accountability, trying to be accountable. My girl said, no, you're not driving because we want you to drink. If I'm driving, I'm not going to drink. So they didn't want that. So they opted, nope, you need to get a ride. And hear me when I say my sister, she didn't say it here today, but we've had the conversation. She hates herself for not getting the call. And I had to tell her, you can't take that because we never picked up the phone to call you. But as far as she's concerned, she should have been there. And she feels as if she let her little sister down because she wasn't there to pick her, her cousin, and her best 2 friends up. And when I say we did everything together, I still text and call those girls and still send them things on Instagram that they would laugh at because that's my circle of friends. Like when I say I have no girlfriend left, I am not being facetious. These were my girls. These were them. And now I walk the rest of this life alone. Or not lacking support because there is some. But I do want to also point out some of the division that this has caused as well. As you've heard, we have been very loving, all familiar with one another. I call their mom's mom just like they call my mom. That's what we've done. We've known each other for 25 to 30 years, with the exception of my blood cousin who was 9 months younger than me. The division though, we were once so unified, did everything together. My God doesn't speak to me, and I know in time we'll work it out. As you heard, she just celebrated her 16th birthday. Once upon a time, I would have been a part of the planning committee. I didn't even know she was having a party. I say that to say that what once was the loving families that we were not today because of this incident. Now, Again, I'm working to forgive myself because I accept full responsibility for allowing us to get in that car. And I hate myself even more for not ensuring that everybody had on the seatbelt after we made that stop in New York. But the emphasis became, Tasha's now sick, let's just get home as soon as we can. And let me be perfectly clear, when we were meeting in Roseline, Tasha got dropped off, for example. So I don't even want you thinking that we were going back to Roseline and then driving. My sister lived there, so I had a place to stay. My cousins lived in a house right around the corner. If any of us couldn't make it home or didn't want to or opted not to, we had options. And so I don't know, again, I didn't have the majority of the conversation with Brandon directly that night. I don't know why we were foolish enough to just trust someone who we hadn't dealt with in such a long time to be accountable and responsible. But we expected that he was. Again, he did not show me any visible signs of being impaired. And because I didn't personally cheers and toast to him, I didn't know what he consumed that day.
Thank you.
Again, I do feel strongly in knowing that the maximum amount of punishment time allowable by law to me isn't sufficient because it's not enough. And what I did learn after all was said and done, I did learn about his previous driving record, where apparently he's got a few incidents with traffic violations. I did learn that
We're going to go through that in a moment.
Okay. So I learned of some things, but I hadn't personally experienced them to know them firsthand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to take a short recess for about 5 minutes. Give my court reporter a break. She's been typing for the last 2 hours nonstop. So give her a break, come back in about 5 minutes.
Now it's hot, right? It's just hot. Thanks. Were you getting cold? No, oh, it was cold, but now it's hot. So it's, it's hard to get. And I think you said came on.
Oh, sorry, we'll fix it.
Okay. And live stream. Live stream.
You got to go upstairs real quick.
No.
That's going to get you for real.
I'm okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm just seeing.
You want to see me? You.
Good job.
distracted from their state. Yeah, I would like. I can do all that. No, I see. Absolutely, absolutely. He needs that out, so let's relax. So, yeah. Sure, sure. And, I think the notes is the exact speeds were in there.
Yeah.
I want to say,
I think you will. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Did you find that weird? A few things have been different. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out where this happened. I know they've done a lot of construction. They did definitely change the traffic. Concrete. Yeah.
I mean, I know the area, I drive over there, to my granddaughter. What they're talking about is that you're changing 75 and 74. It used to be, they used to travel from here.
Right.
And now there's, I don't know how to say it, you know, we get go further, but.
Yeah.
Hey, here's mine. The one right here in front?
No.
Sure, I'll have one. Oh, good, yeah. So everybody else needs water.
Okay, I'm gonna move back to this space.
Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Thank
you. I can see. Okay.
Thank you for
You're
that.
so welcome. How y'all doing? This many people out there. Floors.
Well, that's.
Oh, thank you.
Oh my God, I'm like a kid over here.
Some seats right here, guys. I'm gonna find a seat.
All right, back on the record. I want to turn to the prosecutor. If you can give me a little history
Yes, sir.
on the defendant.
Yes, sir. You kind of speak in general,
Yes.
I'll include that, yes. You know, what I can say, it's not possible for me to even comprehend the loss in this case. The idea of losing 3 loved ones at the same time is something that I can't understand, so I wouldn't dare to try and speak for the victims in this case. But what I would say, and I totally respect what Dr. Allen had to say, and I respect her feelings. But I would say that, you know, our office cares very much about this case and about the loss of life and what happened here. And as you know, Judge, the indictment in this case was a 9-count indictment. And Mr. Davis could only be sentenced on 4 of those counts legally. And as a result, he pled guilty to the 4 most serious counts that existed in the indictment. And those are the only counts that he could face legally under the indictment. So he pled essentially as charged to the most serious offenses that we could bring against him based on the evidence and the facts in this case. Now, he said that, Judge, I would point out for the court that these are not allied offenses. These are all separate victims, which means Mr. Davis can face an individual sentence consecutive on each one. It was mentioned by somebody earlier, and I very much agree with this. I certainly think the court should provide an individual consecutive sentence for each one of these victims today. And Judge, as you know, and I was pointing out for the court, my calculation of the maximum possible sentence in this case including Reagan Tokes into the calculation, would be 29 to 37 years. So the minimum would be 29 years in prison, the maximum would be 37 years in prison, and that's the maximum possible sentence that he faces. And as you heard expressed by many people here, including the surviving victim of syndrome, that's exactly what I think most, if not all, people in this room would like to see happen to Mr. Davis. Your Honor, you mentioned in the beginning that the purposes of sentencing, there are a number of them. And obviously, you're completely correct in the way you describe sentencing. Two things I would point out is part of sentencing also is, as you mentioned, to properly punish the offender considering the nature of the crime and to protect the public. And I think that, and one thing that you consider in imposing the maximum sentence or consecutive sentences, is this the worst form of this type of offense? And that's a calculation you make in determining what type of sentence he would receive. I would submit to the court that from what you've heard today, from my perspective, there's no question that this is the worst form of these offenses. And I'll give you a little more information to help elucidate more what I mean by that. Officer Lusek, he's here. He spoke earlier, and if you need more information, Your Honor, about specifically how this happened, he certainly can provide that. What I can tell you is, as you know, cars today are computerized, and the police have the ability to download information from vehicles to tell them specific things about the way crashes happen. In this case, according to the computer in the defendant's car, he was traveling near 90 miles an hour prior to the accident. He was traveling in excess of 70 miles an hour at the time of the impact. Mr. Davis, now he doesn't, to my knowledge, he doesn't have any prior felony criminal history. I think he has maybe one prior criminal conviction. However, he has 16 prior speeding convictions. In addition, and it's interesting, there was a discussion earlier about, he's loud and shows out, things of that nature. He has a number of convictions for loud stereo. Now, that doesn't mean a whole lot as far as what his prior record is, but it certainly speaks to what we've heard here today about the way he is, the way he acts when he's driving. In addition, Your Honor, at the time, as you know, he was obviously involved and injured as well, taken to the hospital. At the time he was taken to the hospital, they drew his blood, and that blood was submitted to the Hamilton County Coroner's Office for testing. His blood alcohol level at the time of the testing was 0.192, which, as you know, and obviously we're talking sometime after the accident. So that is a substantially high blood alcohol level at the time of the accident. Now, Judge, I mentioned that 29 to 37 and a half years is the maximum possible sentence that exists in this case. But even if the court said, look, he has no prior criminal history, there are reasons not to give him the maximum sentence. Even if you consider 50% of the maximum sentence, that's 14 and a half to 16 and a half years. So from the state's perspective, I completely agree with everybody in this room that an appropriate sentence, bless you, would be the maximum sentence. 29 to 37 and a half years would be an appropriate sentence. When you consider the fact that, and I understand, Judge, that this is a different type of charge than murder per se, because this is something where you can't prove the intention was to kill. But regardless, he chose to get in that car clearly very intoxicated. And he chose to drive these individuals, and he killed Alice Richardson, Erica Easley, and Natasha Moore. And that was his decision. And Judge, certainly from my perspective, I can understand if the court doesn't agree a maximum sentence would be appropriate. But I think that a sentence at or in excess of 20 years is very appropriate in this case. When you have three different individuals lost their lives and a fourth that was very seriously injured. And Judge, obviously the injury isn't simply physical. You heard her talk about the anguish she goes through every day and the psychological pain of what happened here. And Judge, not only do we have the prior speeding, the speed at the time of the accident, speed prior to the accident, his level of alcohol, we also have the fact that he is, as has been mentioned here a number of times, he's arrested, he's given a bail, he makes that bail, and he's out. And there's been talk about remorse and accountability, and what does he do when he's out on bond? Well, Judge, as you know, when he was out on bond, he had a device on his body that tested whether or not he had consumed alcohol. It was a continuous monitor to see if he consumed alcohol. When he's out on bond, his bond was violated because he consumed alcohol. So not only do we have someone who kills 3 people, seriously injures a 4th, has the record he has, was driving that intoxicated, but from the state's perspective, him to continue to consume alcohol after all of that shows a severe lack of remorse. So as I said, from our perspective, again, the maximum sentence would be appropriate, but at the very least, the state would think that a sentence of at least 20 years is called for in this case. Now, as I said, Judge, the officer is willing to answer any other questions if you have any questions about the nature of the accident. But that's what I would like to say about the situation.
Question to the officer. At any time, did you check cell phone records to see if there was any distracted driving?
We did. We looked at his records, but from what we could tell, we couldn't find the Facebook Live recording. It just didn't show in the records that we had. So I can't say whether or not he was or wasn't. I can just say in the records we had, we could not tell.
Okay.
Judge, I'm sorry, I meant to mention that. I apologize, but, and I understand there's been discussion about whether or not him being on the phone had some impact on what took place here. But from my perspective, that doesn't mitigate anything at all. It just exacerbates the situation. He knows how much he had to drink. He knows what he was doing. He's driving 90 miles an hour, very intoxicated. And if he chose to get on his phone and do something else, that just exacerbates and frankly makes him even more accountable for what took place. It's not some way to mitigate what he did or say that this wasn't tied to the alcohol, this was something different.
Oh, I wasn't looking.
No, not you. I'm saying that if he were to argue that, that's what I'm saying. I apologize, Judge. If he were to try and use that as some alternate explanation of what took place, I think it actually just exacerbates it.
Anything else from the state?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, officer. Mr. Harris?
Judge, we'd like to offer Alexander Wilson to speak on his behalf. We have a total of 4 people that would like to speak on his behalf.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
May I remove my mask?
You may.
Thank you. Again, Elise Wilson,
Spell your first name for the court.
ALISE, SWILSON. I don't know where all the families are located in this room today, but I'm assuming that.
You can keep your voice loud.
I'm sorry, yeah, because you have to get permission. I extend my sincerest condolences to the families today. I can only imagine the nightmare that you've been living, that all parties have been living since this has happened. I wanted to make sure I made that statement before I say anything further. Your Honor, Brandon has been a close personal friend of mine for over 24 years. His family, I'm close to them as well. I know that I am an officer of the court, so everything that I say today has bearing on my reputation, my professional reputation. I understand that some of the families here know Brandon personally. And for those of you who do know that Brandon's not a malicious or a callous person, but you all have lost someone very special to you. And believe me, Brandon has shared the frustration, the anger, confusion, and the sadness to the point of silently enduring threats. But Brandon understands that the families are angry, and he believes that the families are entitled to that. That's my personal conversations with Brandon over these past months. For those of you who do not know Brandon, all you have before you today is a snapshot of his character based on one terribly sad, extremely unfortunate, and for the family's unbearable event. On January 24th, 2021, family, friends, and I were celebrating my husband's birthday at Copa. I saw Brandon unexpectedly on 4 different occasions on that evening. I saw him first, right shortly after I arrived, between 1 and 1:30, when I was in the line waiting for a buffet. Brandon came walking by, and my cousin and I are in the line, and we had a brief conversation. I saw Brandon on 2 more occasions before seeing him for the last time that evening. I saw him on two more occasions that evening in passing. And then the last time I saw him was around 5 p.m. Brandon came, my father saw Brandon in the crowd. He says, "Is that Brandon?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Tell him come on up." So I text Brandon, say, "Hey, come on up. My dad wants to say hi." Brandon comes up, greets my husband, greets my dad. We chit chat for about 5 minutes. And then we left. My husband and I left around 6 p.m. I wasn't aware of when Brandon left, but I know that the last time I saw him was about 5 p.m. that day. So as we left, a member of our party called us and said, "Hey, don't take 75, 74 to get home because there's an accident." I live on Coleraine. I live in Coleraine. My husband and I live in Coleraine. And so we took the Hopple exit, or the Hopple to like whatever that goes to Beekman. We saw the accident. We did not know what was going on. So I explained my friendship with Brandon because I want the court to understand that, and I want the families to understand, I know Brandon. I know when he's been drinking. I know when he's impaired. And coming up together pretty much for the past 24 years, we frequented the same hangouts, whether it's us hanging out together back in the day, or just even still to this day, just like on the day in question, or the day at issue at COPA. And so we just so happened to be there at the same time. But on this evening, it became immediately apparent to me, the 4 times I saw Brandon, that he was just chilling, as we would say. Every time our paths crossed that evening, Brandon seemed normal to me. When he came to the table to speak to us prior to his departure, he seemed normal to me. And so imagine my surprise the next morning, my husband tells me, "Call Brandon or his mother," because he was in the accident that night. Did not know all the other details at that point. I just immediately called Brandon's mother. And then when I found out the nature of the charges, my husband and I, along with my dad, we discussed it and we were confused because we were like, "What? Really? Okay, well, hopefully that'll get cleared up," because we saw what we saw. But I don't want to harp on that because the documents say what they say, and he's taking responsibility for that. But I do want to offer to the court that as a resident of the western part of the county for 13 years, I frequent that exit. And I personally believe that the significant contributing factor to that accident was the poor reconstruction of that exit. I've been driving that exit for 13 years. When they first started that construction and they first completed the first phase of how that exit splits, I found myself slamming on the brakes. I found myself having to recorrect my path at that exit. This is in the middle of the day. And so I'm sitting there scared to death because I'm afraid that somebody on 75 is going to hit me, or somebody coming on the ramp is going to hit me because I'm right here at the divider. It's just been a frustrating area to navigate, and it continues to be a frustrating area to navigate. So when all this came about, I got curious. I said, I wonder how many, after all the accidents I've driven past, after my own situation where I had to slam on the brakes on an exit that I drive routinely, how many accidents have happened at this exit as a result of this poor reconstruction that's ongoing? Just in November, 2 accidents. This year alone, from what I could find without going through ODOT's actual lengthy report of crash statistics, 10 accidents at that exit this year. And so I offer today that the significant contributing factor, in my opinion, is the accident, is the poor reconstruction of the exit. But I also just want to point out, which I'm sure counsel will point out, that Brandon's here taking responsibility. He didn't drag this out.
He didn't file motions. He's not trying the case. He's taking responsibility because at the end of the day, his friends, your loved ones, are not here. And so I pray that this court has mercy on Brandon. But after the sentence is handed down, all that is left is the grieving period. And so I just pray that the families find grace and mercy and forgiveness in their hearts. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Danielle Thompson. Danielle Thompson.
Okay.
Sorry. Standing here, Brandon has been my friend for over 20 years. And listening to all the families here, I was so sorry. I know it's not anything, but I'm just here to tell you about the character that I know Brandon to be. When I enrolled at Wright State University in 2001, I met Brandon. He was fun, he was flashy, and the plus for me is he had a car and I was a freshman. He lived in Cincinnati. We became close friends. Me and my friends trusted him. He took us to the grocery store and showed us where things were on campus. He was like the person you could go to for the inside. The classes to take, the classes not to take. He's always, even though he was always littler than everybody, he was always like that stand-up guy. Like, I trusted him. I have a younger brother, he's 3 years younger than me. When he decided to start going to Wright State, the summer when he came home, he's young, he's irresponsible. I told my mom, like, hey, I know the perfect person that could watch over him a little bit when he at home. That was Brandon. My brother would be good. I ain't have nobody else. My brother don't want to hang with his sister. From that point on, Brandon had became part of our family. He came to all of our functions. Brandon been there for me when I've had different situations in my life. And I know the type of man he is. He's a reliable friend. Like, he's the one that if you want some bull crap, he'll call you out on it, even if it makes you mad at him, because he a stand-up dude. My brother started a business. Brandon would be the first one at the door before me or my brother would get there, because he was like on time. He didn't play about being on time. He didn't play about business. He made sure. Now, yes, he was that flashy, he had that name arrogant, because social media, you can be whoever you want to be. But in his life, in his heart, he was a good man. He still is a good man. I know all of us, we have things in our life that we might not be proud of. And talking to Brandon over these months, even today, me being someone who didn't have anything to do with this, I'm so uncomfortable because I don't have anything to say. I can't bring nothing of that. I didn't even really talk to Tasha like that, but I grew up with Tasha. I'm a member of New Prospect Baptist Church. We've been going to church together since we were kids. She was just a little bit older than me, so we really didn't connect like that. So to sit here knowing that I got to stand up here because I got to let y'all know, like, I can think about times where I didn't make the right decisions, or maybe I had one too many. Thank you, Jesus, you make it home. But these three beautiful women, they're not here. And they got families and they got kids that just got to go through this, and it is mind-boggling. But to stand here in front of you today and tell you
that even though that happened, I still trust Brandon with my little brother. I trust him with myself. When me and my friends had them nights at Wright State, Brandon was always there. Like, he never let me down. I done been through stuff. I done called him in the night. Even if I talk to him in months, he'll be right there because he'll stand up, man of his word. I will say, I live in Correct. I done drove. I tell you, I don't know the timings, but whenever they put that huge block, the first time they did the first part of that phase, I got a little anxiety on the road. I hate when I first seen, I was like, what are they doing? From that point on, I didn't even take it. I just took the streetway all the way up Correct. I'm saying today that what happened on Sunday, January 24th, that can never connect the man that I've seen him be, the remorse or anything, because I am so sorry. So I can't Brandon, he having nightmares. He is bearing this too. He literally told me, I really don't want to be here no more because I am messed up. And I am a person, and those are my friends. So I'm here to say, Judge, you went to school for this. You know what you're doing. I'm not here to try to dictate anything. I just needed you to have a man that I know Brandon Davis to be, one that I trust with my own life, the one that I have trusted and told my mom, ain't nobody gonna bring nobody to this, not like they do this. Somebody brought him to my mind and say, hey, as long as being around in my brother's life, my brother gonna be good. He gonna do the right thing. He ain't gonna go astray. And he hasn't. He's sitting right there today. So again, our deepest condolences to the family. Brandon, I always go look. And thank you again for your time today, Judge, for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, we have one that couldn't make it inside. That's how you'd like to bring them in. Good.
Good afternoon. Tell me your name for the record.
DeWitt Anderson.
Spell your first name.
DEWITT.
Thank you.
I'm Brandon's stepdad. First, before I even start, I want to give my condolences to all those involved, especially the families of the victims of the accident. I was able to watch the stream outside, and the young lady survivor, the other survivor, really drove home the seriousness of the accident. I was in law enforcement at the time. I was, even before I was 21, I got hired by a police department. I've investigated accidents similar to this. One of the hardest things that any law enforcement officer has to do is do a death notification. So I understand how you feel. I've lost. So again, my wife, who was in here, she came in. Prayers have been with you since the beginning, since we got that phone call. My wife and I was at the hospital. When we saw some of the family members, we were just as confused as you were. We had no idea what was going on. We were trying to get answers like everyone else. So again, we prayed for you and prayed for you over and over and over again. We continue to pray for you, pray for you to heal, pray for your mercy. We pray for your forgiveness. But that's my son. I'm not mistaken. That's my son. I've been around him since he was 9 years old. I've known him almost his whole life. I've heard some of the things that were stated. Yeah, some of it was true. But Brandon's a good guy. Brandon made me proud on several occasions. That night You know, I haven't looked at the accident report. I haven't looked at it. I haven't seen what the VAC was. I didn't see all the factors, but I can't say this, Your Honor. He's taken responsibility for it. Restless nights, not been able to sleep, calling his mom crying. She has to go over there and consult him. He wants answers, but unfortunately, we don't have answers. Sometimes things happen. And I'm not saying this happened, there were contributing factors this year. And I myself was recently involved in an accident 2 months ago where someone died, where a gentleman turned into my car. And when someone dies and you're directly involved, that's one of the hardest things. I've dedicated my whole life to saving lives, protecting lives. And now to have that happen, I couldn't imagine what he's gone through. But I couldn't imagine what this family's gone through, what these families have gone through to lose such a young person in death. The one thing that I did want to talk, that whole section of Interstate 74, Red Split is, I drive that road every day for the past 18 years, going home from work. That is a bad spot. The traffic patterns change constantly, not as much this year. But I know after the accident, I went by and I kept looking and seeing how many times they rebuilt that crash berm, that crash impact berm. Since this accident, that has been rebuilt 5 because someone has hit it. The traffic patterns have changed numerous of times. They've taken the cones and the lane and extended it further out so people can recognize that because when you're driving, Your Honor, it looks like you're going straight and you're not. The whole lane changes. So there have been issues there during that whole time period. Even prior to that, I still see people shoot over at the last minute, or people try to shoot over at the other minute trying to get onto the highway. It's just that spot. That, and you add all the other contributing factors of the accident, it was a bad cocktail of what it was. So I ask that you be fair, which I know you will. I ask that you take all things into consideration. There's a lot of emotion here today, a lot of hurt, a lot of confusion. Brandon's not a good guy. I mean, Brandon's not a bad guy. You know, he's a great. I hate to say kid because he's 40. Keep forgetting he's 40 years old now. But like I said, I've been knowing Brandon since he was 9 years old, and Brandon has always done the right things. And none of us make mistakes. I know he made a mistake, but unfortunately, this mistake was a real bad one, the drinking part. But there are other contributing factors, and I just ask that you take those into consideration when deciding the sentence. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
My name is Fiance Davis. That's my little brother. They said everything, but he is a good person. And it was an accident. They all friends. I know all of them. We all grew up together. We all from Rosemont. If my brother wouldn't have made it and she would have passed, it would have been all that hurt. But he made it and he was driving. So I understand the emotion. I understand what they going through. But he go through it too. He can't talk because you got it's separated. It's the law. You can't reach out and just be like, I want to reach out. He could have reached out. I wouldn't have responded. Y'all don't. But we lost. Everybody lose. But to send him away for all these years for an accident that's friends, that everybody together, it don't make no sense. Don't help you. He need rehabilitation for some. I ain't saying that he just don't nothing happen. But when you punish somebody to try to help them, try to make them better, try to make a better person out of them. You go to jail and send them to jail. It ain't no help in jail. I done been there. 12 and a half years I done been there. It's not gonna help. You need help, period. And he's been taking counseling. He's been doing online classes and just trying to do better. And I seen him crying. Before he could have put on the buck, like he stayed at my mama's house for months, just crying and scared and don't understand. Like he don't even understand. He know what's going on, but he don't understand because it ain't his life. It should have been me. It shouldn't have been him. I wish it was me because I know what to do. I know how to function. That ain't his life. If I could trade places with him, I would, and I'll be all right. I know the help that need to get. He don't. It's gonna take time. He hurting, and y'all thinking about that. Y'all loved ones they gone. I love my brother to death, and I'm glad he here. I swear to God that I hate that y'all had to lose, but it ain't no everybody losing. He'll be everybody losing. And that's just all I got to say. Like, and just that's it.
Mr. Davis, you get the final word.
Your Honor, the first thing I want to say is my condolences to all the families. A lot of those things that they said about me, yes, are true. But they didn't factor in the timeline of some of those things. The Brandon Arrogant Davis that my Facebook profile used to say was years ago. Years ago. The fast driving or the tickets he's speaking of was years ago. I might have had one in the past 6 years. I'm a CDL holder. That's my career. That's my career. That's basically supposed to say that I drive a little bit better than the average person, supposedly. So that's my career. So I value how I carry myself and how I drive. So I don't take away that, my previous past, that yes, I may have been flashy. I had the arrogant profile and everything. I completely agree with that. But it's not recent. Over the time I've gotten older, I've learned, and that's just how things have been. But I've reached out to some of the families in the early months, only the ones that I could. One person responded back in the beginning. Marnita, she responded to one text message, but I continued to send several. She stopped responding. She was talking to my best friend, Dante Walton, a few times. The person that she said that she reached out to, they were communicating, and he was kind of playing the middleman of things. I've reached out. I asked her to share my phone number with the whole family. Anybody that wanted to contact me, I have an open line. Please feel free. I've shared that with her numerous times. One person got back with me. Mrs. Grundy. She got back with me in the early months. I talked to her a few times, just like I shared a brief conversation with her in the hallway today. She referred to me, as she was a religious woman. She referred to me, as a son, and it basically was telling me how sorry it is that I had to go through this, and that she forgave me, and that she knows her daughter's heart, Tasha, and that she forgave me. I ran into Stephanie easily, Erica's sister. I ran into her randomly, and I'm not gonna lie. When I seen her, she had a COVID mask on. She said my name. She said Brandon. I turned around. I didn't immediately know it was her. I haven't seen her in a very long time. She dropped her mask, and my heart just dropped. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was going through her mind. But we sat there on that corner for about 40, 45 minutes and talked. And that was the second semi-good conversation that I've had before I had one with Miss Grundy. And after that day, everything kind of took for a turn. Now, I had something I wanted to say. I waited 11 months to say that to the family members that I have not spoken to. And to the very few family members I've spoken to, I've expressed my apologies over and over again. I know there is nothing I can say or do that will ease the hurt and the pain that you suffered. And for that, I'm deeply sorry. Tasha, Eric, and Alice, who I now refer to as my angels because they have helped me over these past months get through tough times. They are not just associates or someone I just spoke to when I saw them. They are and forever will be real, genuine friends. We all grew up together in Roseline, myself, Alice, and Tasha. We laughed, we played together on the playground at Roseline Condon. Erica, not being from Roseline, she always made it her way to come out there on weekends over her cousin Marnita Ingram's house. So we always had a good time. And like they said, her mother's house that was the house, the it house. Me and my friends, we played basketball there every day almost. On the weekends, we were there from the moment they allowed us to. That's where myself and Mr. and Mrs. Ingram, they know me when I was younger, as well as in my early 20s of my life. I've waited for this day ever since I woke up in the hospital, not to determine my consequences, but to face the families to express how sorry I am. You lost mothers, daughters, cousins, nieces, aunties, and I've lost true friends. Waking up in the hospital that tragic day, the first thing I asked the nurse was, where are my friends? She looked at me as if she didn't even hear me. So I grabbed her arm firmly and I asked again. She quickly changed the subject and she said she would be right back. I knew at that moment it was bad, but I still didn't know how bad it was. I somehow made it out of the bed to get to a wall phone and called a friend who I begged to tell me what was going on. But they refused to tell me because they didn't want me to break down. So I made another call and I basically forced someone to tell me what had happened. When I found out my friends' lives were lost, whatever they had me hooked up to, it just started beeping. I couldn't calm down. To this day, I will never understand why myself and Nita were able to walk away from this accident with recoverable injuries, and my friends Tasha, Erica, and Alice had to lose their lives. This is something I've asked myself every single day and will continue to ask myself for the rest of my life. I'm able to stand here today to tell you this tragic story because for some reason, God protected me and Nita that day. I don't know why just yet, but he did. But he kept us here for a reason. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what I've been through these past few months because this ain't about me. I'm here today because I'm taking accountability for my actions. I'm not running from this situation. I'm not trying to beat the case. I'm standing here before the court and the families to face the consequences of this terrible and tragic accident. The media and the prosecutor is going to try to paint this picture like I'm a bad person, like I'm some sort of alcoholic or irresponsible person. I'm the complete opposite. Yes, I ran into some friends I have not seen in years, and all we did was enjoy each other's company that afternoon because we rarely ever see each other. I would have never offered to take my friends home if I didn't feel or think I could get them home safely. I say that to say this. Alcohol was in my system, but alcohol was not the cause of this accident. However, me allowing myself to be distracted was the cause. Let me be clear on this. It was my fault. I allowed myself to be distracted. My good friend Alice was on her Snapchat social media account, like a lot of people do these days. And she simply asked me to say what's up to her viewers at the time. I made the choice.
That is not true.
I made the choice to look over.
That's not my mama's fault that they died.
I would never put that.
That is not true.
I say this to you, Judge. I do not place the blame on Alice. Nowhere near. I made that choice. I made the choice to look over and say what's up to the people. At that moment is when everything happened. After that, I woke up in the hospital. Marnita, listening to her, everything she said was a lot of new information to me. I don't even remember standing up. I don't remember putting a coat on. I remember waking up in the hospital and going from there. It changed my life and friends' lives forever. Now, this is something I have to live with and remember for the rest of my life. But I'm okay with that. I won't forget my friends and I won't let them die in vain. I will forever celebrate them. No matter the outcome today, I want to thank God, my family, and my friends for all the support today throughout this tragic event. To the families, a lot of you know me. You know my heart. I know you're hurt and angry. I would be as well. But know I'm deeply sorry, and one day I hope you'll be able to forgive me. Thank you.
Mr. Davis, you have been out on bond for the past 11 months. Tell me, what have you been doing?
Your Honor, may I be heard, or are you going to?
Are you go ahead, yes, sir.
Judge, what I can say is I can speak to my personal experience. Me and Mr. Johnson began representing Mr. Davis, and I can tell you from day one, without any ifs, ands, and buts, he has taken accountability and responsibility for this. No ifs, ands, and buts. We had marching orders, and his marching orders was that he was going to accept this, that he was going to stand on it. There was nothing to fight. Judge, we believe that, and I think as his stepdad said, that this was a fatal cocktail. Without any question, as I started with, Mr. Davis takes responsibility for his alcohol consumption that day. Period, point blank. There's no question he was over the legal limit. But in addition, Judge, we would point out to this court that not only was he under the influence, he was a distracted driver. And not placing blame, but just stating facts. Stating facts. He was driving over the speed limit. That's facts. But he was also distracted by his front seat passenger. That's facts. Period, point blank. And the final.
Hold on. They didn't interrupt when you guys were speaking, so you courtesy and not interrupt while they're speaking.
And the final thing we would submit to this court is that it was a poorly designed exit. I too have traveled that road from downtown day in and day out, Your Honor, and I've watched it, and I didn't know it was 5 changes. I've watched them make at least 3 changes of that same exit. It was poorly designed. I've listened to our police chief talk on the news about how poorly designed that exit was. And if you watch the video, Judge, all it takes is that slight distraction. And again, he was driving beyond the speed limit, and we're not challenging that. But all it takes is that slight loss of focus. But these young ladies should have been here. And you're saying that Brandon and having 3 of his friends killed that day. It was a tragic accident. So I would point out to the court the things that, in my mind, Brandon has done to make this better. From reviewing the PSI, the police officer said, without any question, he has cooperated with their investigation. That at one point he asserted his rights, which he has a constitutional right to do. And beyond that, Judge, he has been cooperative. Any and every time that we've looked to meet with him, he's been here to meet. Any and every time this court has required him to come to court, he has been here. And although he did have a mishap with the scram device, Your Honor, he has not picked up any charges. There are no allegations that he has continued to drive. And this is not for a month. This is not for 2 months. This has been for 11 months. So again, Judge, I think it points out to how seriously he's taking it. Judge, he's undergoing counseling, and it's not important because that was for him to get his mind right. But there's many times that he's been challenged to understand why he's still here. And his friends are no longer here.
Someone needs to.
We understand that the family is angry. We understand the pain. There is nothing that we can do at this point to correct that. But I think, Judge, the easy thing to do is to give him the maximum sentence. The most difficult thing to do is to be fair, is to look the people in the eye and say it was a tragic accident. It's something that he has to live with for the rest of his life. And with that, Your Honor, we submitted to this court, and we would ask this court and the families for compassion and mercy at this time.
Thank you. I don't know where to begin, so I'll just start at what I have to consider when I come up with this sentence. First thing that comes to my mind is whether or not I'm going to give a consecutive sentence for the 4 charges that he entered a plea to. Now, the law requires me to start off with a concurrent sentence. A concurrent sentence is presumed unless I can show that there are other factors that justify me running those sentences consecutively. The one factor that I really considered was that the harm in this instance was so great that a single term does not adequately reflect the seriousness. All the individuals testified as to, the pain that they've gone through, the loss of 3 loved ones, the kids who have to be raised without their mothers present. And I do believe that a consecutive prison sentence is justified in this instance. So where do I begin? I know that each count of the aggravated vehicular homicide carries a potential sentence of 2 to 8 years, with one having a mandatory 50% tail due to rate and tokes. And then on the vehicular assault, was that an aggravated vehicular assault?
Yes, sir.
That would be a felony of 3rd degree, and that carries anywhere from 9 to 36 months.
Judge, I'm sorry. This actually, 290306 is one of the exceptions. So it would carry 12, 18, 24, 36, 42, 48, 54, or 60 months.
Thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
So what are the factors that I considered? I wrote down everything to come up with a just sentence to adequately punish the offender, but be fair. The defendant was charged with a DUI. He had a BAC of 0.192. He was traveling at one point 90 miles per hour. And then at the time of the impact, it was 70 miles per hour.
Judge, excuse me for interrupting. There was a blood alcohol.
BAC.
Yes, sir.
Blood. I'm sorry. BAC is blood. Yep. 3 deaths, 3 families. What I also have to consider is how this accident occurred. We all know that 75, 74 intersection is very bad. And I believe that one of the individuals speaking on behalf of the victims indicated that the pattern of traffic changed that very morning. So I have to consider that. I have to consider what Mr. Davis said because he was the one that was in the car. I asked the other individual who survived this accident, was there any distracted driving? She couldn't be for sure, but Mr. Davis told me that he was distracted, that he went on Facebook Live to give a shout out from one of the passengers. I have to consider that. I have to consider that Mr. Davis does not have a criminal record. Well, he does have a very bad traffic record from some years ago. I believe his last traffic accident was in 2018, or a traffic ticket, it was a speeding ticket. The roads were slightly wet. And he had been drinking. We know that. As defense counsel has stated, this is not something that Mr. Davis set out to do that morning. He did not set out to intentionally kill his 3 friends. This makes this case a lot different than what I normally hear. Generally, when you hear someone dying, someone set out that morning to kill another person. This is truly an accident with additional factors such as alcohol and speeding. But for those 2, it would have been an accident and he probably would not have been charged. But here we are today. He is charged with the death of these 3 individuals and causing harm to the 4th. All right, the sentence will be as follows. As to count 1 of the indictment, aggravated vehicular homicide, 2 years in the Ohio Department of Corrections. As to count 3, 2 years in the Ohio Department of Corrections. As to count 5, 2 years in the Ohio Department of Corrections. And as to count 7, 1 year in the Ohio Department of Corrections. Those sentences are to run consecutively to each other, with count 7 being served first, the 1 year, and then the 2 years being served afterwards. As to count 1, I'm assessing the Reagan-Tokes mandatory 50% penalty. That will be an additional year. And that's at the discretion of the Ohio Department of Corrections. We want to remit the fine, remit the cost, make a finding of indigency. There'll be a lifetime driver's license suspension. So the aggregate sentence will be 7 to 8 years in the Ohio Department of Corrections. That term to be served starting today. He has 30 days to appeal my decision. If he cannot afford the cost of the appeal, the state will provide the cost and the attorney for him.
Does the court consider a brief stay so he can get his affairs in order?
I gave him an extended stay to this date in order for him to do that. So I'm going to deny that request. Anything further from the state?
Judge, I would just point out that I think that as to each of the first 3 counts, he would need to get a separate class 1 suspension, and then as to count 4, be a class 3 suspension. So it's, I mean, I know it's life each way, but I think it has to be imposed to each, I would just say. And then the class 3 is 2 to 10 years. You have to select between 2 and 2 years. That's right. Yeah.
So I'll make it life on each of the 3, counts 1, 3, and 5, and then 10 years on count 7.
All right. Thank you, Judge. That's good.
Thank you. Thank you.
I did. Yeah, you did.
We did. I did.
All right, court's in recess.
You have Carl and I'm sorry.
He's in the law library. I'll text him and tell him to come down whenever you're ready.